I would just like to start off by saying that my intentions coming on here are not to hurt anybody, not to hurt my mother. I'll be telling my story as if I was living it in the moment. So a lot of the feelings that I'm going to be bringing up are how I felt at the time. And a lot of them were, hurtful, painful feelings. And that kind of comes up naturally when you're reflecting on how things felt. And right now I do have a relationship with my mom, and I have come to terms with everything. I've forgiven her, but I haven't forgotten anything. It's kind of hard to forget something so profoundly painful and life altering, because it really did alter the entire course of my life. Her decisions and her actions changed everything. But at the end of the day, it kind of made me who I am. So I am grateful for that. People make mistakes. And telling my story isn't to point fingers and spew hate at anybody. It's just about understanding and healing. And, it may change the way some people view me in my life, because a lot of the stuff is sad, and a lot of things people are close to me don't know about will come out too. But at the end of the day, it's my story, and I just hope that it can help somebody. Out of respect for some, I'll change some names in the story, but I'll leave the ones in who deserve it. So... All right, so I'm going to kind of start at the beginning when my parents met, because it all kind of stems from my mom, and just kind of want to give everybody an idea of who she was and how their relationship was. They met and started dating at high school graduation, so they were kind of high school sweethearts, but toward the end. They were in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time, and they got married in October of 1990, right when he graduated. He went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, so UTK. He's a huge Tennessee Vols fan. My dad is. And after they graduated, he was looking for a job. He went into, he had a business finance kind of degree, a bachelor's. And my Aunt Tammy was living in Houston at the time. That's his sister. So they moved to Houston, and he moved in with her, and he found a Unical, which was a oil company, posting in basically the newspaper. And he applied for it and got it as an accountant there. So they transferred him to Bangkok, Thailand in 1995. So they offered him an overseas position. So when you're working overseas, you get per diem. You pay taxes differently. You make 3 times the amount you would working in the US. So it was a huge opportunity for him. And my mom went with him initially. And they moved there. Everything was great. Thailand is beautiful. Bangkok's awesome. When you move there, you get a staff of drivers, nannies, cooks, cleaners. So it's a whole different life, essentially. Right. And my mom initially moved there, but by March 1996, my mom starts telling my dad, I'm homesick. I don't feel good here. I want to go home, but her home is Tennessee. She went back to Houston, Texas. He got her a car, got her an apartment, everything. And about a year later, she came back, and she had, lost some weight too. She was working out. She kind of always struggled with eating disorders, according to my Uncle David, her brother, and her sister, my Aunt Lisa, God rest her soul. She passed away from breast cancer. She dealt with a lot of mental health issues as well. So it kind of is prevalent throughout the family, mental health issues, bipolar, schizophrenia, eating disorders, addiction. It's kind of stemmed throughout their whole family. So it just was kind of throughout the family. Yeah. And it definitely got passed down to my sister and I. And I was born in 1998 in Bangkok, Thailand. And then my sister was born in 2000. So I was born September 26th. She was born April 26th. So we are exactly 18 months apart. Wow. So we are very, very, very close. We do everything together. So our whole lives. And then in July 2000, we moved to Houston. We moved back to Houston.
So you were only in Thailand for 2 years, was it?
Yeah, okay. I was in Thailand for 2 years. My sister was 3 months old when we moved. Okay. So we've had passports since we were a couple months old from all the traveling. So my sister was really young. I was about 2. We moved back to Houston. And everything was pretty good. I mean, I don't remember much because I was so young. But that is when my first memories of my mom's drinking started to really come up. I used to remember me telling her she was talking funny because I didn't understand, but all I knew is when she would drink, her voice would change. Mm-hmm. So I'd be Mom's talking funny again. That was my perception of it was talking funny. And my dad said that I used to just cry and hide, and it used to scare me.
Yeah, because kids can sense things. Even if you can't grasp what is actually happening, you can tell that things are weird or things are changing?
It was just like, it was just strange. Like, I had never really seen her like that before, I think. And I just associated her talking funny or her voice changing when she got drunk with just trauma, just scared. My dad described me as just terrified of her. And like to the point where I would hide and everything. And I was 5 years old. And I remember that. That's like my earliest memories probably is that happening. My sister, I did talk to her. She doesn't remember. She was so young, so young. And about 2003, about 3 years after we were in Texas, my Uncle David, my mom's brother, moved in with us. He was trying to like find a job and he moved in with us. You know, it was good that he was there. He kind of saw my mom struggling a lot, but he was kind of like, oh, that's Missy. That's what he would say. You know, that's Missy. That's just who she is. I think my Uncle David's kind of growing up with her, seeing like the way my Aunt Lisa and her also act. He just is kind of used to it. Like, that's just kind of how she is. And I think that's sad too also. Yeah. It was just kind of like, that's just Missy. But eventually, about 8 months later, my dad got a job offer to move to Jakarta, Indonesia.
Wow.
So in 2004, I think it was like June or July, we moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm about to turn 6. My sister is 5 at this time because we're so close in age. We're 18 months apart. No, she's 4. Yeah, she's 4. I'm about to turn 6. And we moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. Totally just like third world, but not. Mm-hmm. It was just so different.
Right.
We had 3 security guards and a gated compound. We had a cook, Bertine, my nanny, Titi, who basically took care of us. We each had a driver. So my dad had a driver, my mom had a driver, and us kids had a driver. We had a gardener who was Titi's husband. We had, it was like everything was taken care of.
Yeah, that is incredible. Wow. Okay.
So it was very different. Yeah. But the company pays for all of it.
Okay.
So you're put in international school. So when you travel and then you're an expat, you're called an expatriate. We just call it expats. You go to an international school because you're not going to go to a local public Indonesian school as, someone who's there on contract for a job. So you go to an international school. And I grew up my whole life going to international schools. They're very expensive. It was like $27,000 a year for elementary school, but the company pays for all of it.
Wow.
So you're talking like you've got diplomats, you've got like wealthy oil tycoons, like you're in school with like some of the wealthiest people you've ever seen.
Right.
We grew up very financially well. But in perspective to some of these people at this school, it was like we went to school with some crazy people as far as like wild. Financial level. So there wasn't a lower class, middle class, upper class. Everyone was just upper class expats with their drivers and their nannies. And people would show up to school in limos and stuff.
That's insane.
Yeah, like elementary school kids showing up in limos.
And I was going to ask you too, like all the moving, I guess at a young age, like did you ever feel like you didn't want to up and move or?
Yeah. I think because in the beginning I was so young, I didn't really realize, but later on in life, because we moved every 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Always 3 to 5 years. Later on in life, it became so difficult.
Right, because then you can't really maintain relationships.
Right, and you're scared to form them at a point because you're like, I'm going to leave this person and never see him again in 5 years.
Right.
So that's just like a horrible feeling. And, making friends came easy for me. I was always like a really loud, outgoing person, but my sister and I always kind of stuck together. It's like her friends were my friends, my friends were her friends. So I always had her. It was the only constant thing in my life was my sister. She was my only constant. And we moved to Indonesia, beautiful house. It was gorgeous. It had like hills outside and like a pool. Like it was just beautiful. Everything was beautiful. And I kind of I think I even remember as a child, like feeling hope. I was like, maybe things will get better. Mom's away from Texas, away from whatever's going on. What was going on was the guy she was cheating on. I'm sure that's where the drinking stemmed from. I'm sure my dad kind of was knowing about it, but trying to make it work because she literally just gave birth to 2 kids. So he kind of became aware of it. He was aware of it at this time now. He knew about it, but he's like, we got to make it work. You literally just gave birth to 2 kids. They're 4 and 2. Like, we have to make this work. So I think moving to Indonesia also, I think in my dad's eyes, maybe was like a way to save their relationship too, to get her away. Right. So, he was all for it. So we moved to Indonesia, and we got in school, and it was called Patty Mora Elementary School. They had like their own little theme song. It was cute. And we had like talent shows. My mom was like the PTA mom president. Like she was very involved. Even though we had like nannies and drivers and stuff, my mom was still very present and very involved. We started riding horses. We became really passionate. We were horse girls.
I love that.
We became very passionate about it. I'm talking like we lived at the stables from the time like I was like 5 and up. I started learning to ride horses. We were, my dad bought us horses and everything. Like it was like living the dream until December 2004. I don't know if you remember this, but the tsunami that hit Indonesia and Sri Lanka in 2004. So December 26th, Boxing Day is what they called it. It's the day after Christmas Day. A tsunami hit Phuket, Thailand, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka and killed 300,000 people.
Wow.
It was one of the top 10 worst natural disasters in our time. And a lot of kids at school lost like their nannies and stuff, lost husbands, family. Phuket was actually our favorite vacation spot. We always went there. We just didn't happen to go this time. A friend of ours did. I remember her telling me, her name was Marissa, her family was running up 8 flights of stairs running from the tsunami as the water was filling up. And they got to the top and they said they all just prayed and waited. And eventually like the water got to the very top and like it started going down. And then they were rescued like 2 days later.
Oh my gosh.
It was terrifying. Horrible. I mean, the whole country of Sri Lanka pretty much just devastated. I mean, I remember going back to school after that Christmas break and like people like, I don't know how many people died from school or how many families, but I just remember it was awful. It was horrible. And it scared me, and my mom used this to her advantage later on in life, the tsunami. Also, while we were there were suicide bombings. There was the suicide bombing of the Australian embassy in Jakarta, which we felt at our house. There was also a suicide bombing at the top of the Ritz-Carlton and one other hotel a couple miles away from our house. So it was still very third world, but I felt safe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because it's like, surface level, you had all these things, but it was still these experiences that were terrifying and huge tragedies.
And like all these things were happening, but like we were like living the life. Like we weren't worried about money.
It's confusing almost.
Yeah, it was. It was like, oh my gosh, all these horrible things are happening. But like I have friends, I have nannies, I have drivers. I can do whatever I want. I'm not financially wanting for anything. We have food. We have basically like everything we needed. But I would say around like 2006, about 2005, maybe like a year or two into us living there, my mom's drinking escalated heavily. She met a girl called Stacy, and she was a huge partier. She was so much fun though. But basically like, it's so hard to describe. All the moms would throw these huge parties and we would like alternate houses. Like it would be at our house one time and then at Stacey's house another time or at Melanie's house another time. I can't believe I still remember all these moms' names. And they just throw parties constantly, like rent a DJ, have like dancers. Like it was crazy, like full on party decorators, DJ, smoke machines. Like I have photos and videos of like the parties and stuff that they would throw, and all the nannies would kind of like watch the kids and take them upstairs while the parents would party downstairs. I'm talking like I have like videos of like them like skinny dipping, jumping in the pool. Like they were getting lit. They were having the time of their life.
Literally.
But it drew back into my mom drinking and the talking funny, and my meltdowns got worse. Like I would come down during the parties sometimes and just like screaming, crying, and like she was just so obliterated would be like the only way to describe it. Was like she couldn't walk, like she couldn't talk, like it was becoming like an every weekend thing. So she wasn't drinking every day, but she was getting absolutely obliterated every weekend. And I would like, my nanny and my titty would have to like force me to like go in another room and basically like get away and not see it. And I would just like cry myself to sleep. And that just became like a normal thing. I was like, oh, every weekend, here's another party. Here's another, event.
Deal with it again.
yeah, it's just kind of like how it was. And my mom would get so annoyed and be like, I'm fine. Like, what are you doing? Like, that never happened. It'd be like gaslighting almost. Like, I wasn't drunk. Like, I wasn't drinking. Like, I wasn't talking funny because, like, I was still young, you know? So she was trying to, like, justify it to me in the only way that made sense. But I didn't care. All I knew is that I didn't like what was happening, and I felt uncomfortable. Like, I just did not like it. Now we kind of get into like 2006, 2007, and this is the time that my dad believes my mom met Arif. Somewhere around this time, she must have met him at the American Club. So the American Club is like a country club, but for expats in a foreign country. So we called it the American Club. There was like a pool, private trainers. There were, resources for them to watch the kids so the parents could come work out and swim. And then they had like a whole staff of people that would take these kids to these giant playground. It was like a cool country club, basically, but for expats. Mm-hmm. And my mom started gaining weight again because she wasn't working out with that guy in Texas. So, her weight fluctuations were a big thing. So she started working out with Arif. Her and her best friend, I'm going to change her name out of the respect for her husband and her family. We're going to call her Tara. Her and Tara were basically training with Arif at the American Club. I remember them going on trips together. Like my mom, Tara, and Arif would just like pack up and go on these trips to like Bandung and Puncak were like little towns in Indonesia that you could drive to. You didn't have to fly to, but they had like beaches, and because we're kind of like middle, but Indonesia's an island. Jakarta's still on the island of Indonesia. So if you drive down to certain areas, you get beach.
Okay.
So they would go on these little trips to like different cities, and they would go to the beach. And I kind of didn't really think anything of it. I was like, but it's kind of weird. Like two married women going on a trip.
Right. Like for what?
With their workout trainer. It just kind of, you think about it, it's odd. But at the time, like, I just didn't think about it because I wasn't.
You're young and you're.
Yeah. I just had no idea.
Right.
Basically, what ended up happening was Arif was sleeping with Tara. So she was cheating on her husband. Her husband found out very quick. I'm talking within a week, moved his whole family out of Indonesia back to America.
Did she stay?
No.
She left.
Took her.
Oh, okay.
Took the kids. I mean, I'm talking within a week, they were gone. Up and packed his whole family and said, we're out of here. And I do think they're still together.
Okay.
I do think they're still together. It was like they were just gone. And we were friends with their kids and everything.
It's crazy too because kind of like side note, and this isn't any judgment, but it's almost like this mindset of, okay, if we just leave the country, everything gets better. But like if somebody's going to be unfaithful, they're going to do it anywhere.
Especially like I felt like that was the culture with expats.
Right.
Anytime anything went wrong, the solution was let's pack up and move to another country and get a new contract with another job. It was just like a trend. Mm-hmm. And mom was aware the whole time and actively participating. I mean, obviously, like they would go on trips.
Right.
Tara and Arif were sleeping together. My mom's watching it. And knowing from her sleeping with that other workout trainer, I'm sure she was just like, oh, I'm supporting my friend. She found love. Like, I'm sure. I don't know her perspective on it. All I can do is assume because, she's never really been like 100% like upfront honest with me about anything that's happened. And unfortunately, like when she does tell me things now, like I just don't know if to believe it, to be honest, just because of everything that's happened. But I mean, that happened and he started coming around a lot more. One thing I will say that I think is important is my dad is not the most emotionally available person. He always was with us kids, but he wasn't like very emotionally available to my mom.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's maybe why she felt like it was totally okay, even though I don't think it was okay, for her to cheat and like find these other people. But obviously my mom had to have felt like she wasn't getting something.
Right. She was lacking
from my dad. She had to have felt that. And at this time, my dad would come home a month, leave a month, come home a month, leave a month. Like he was constantly traveling. I did forget to mention that Chevron bought Unocal about a year into us moving to Jakarta. So Chevron, big oil company, bought Unocal out.
Okay.
And they absorbed the company and they took my dad on as the financial manager for the project in Indonesia. So he got a huge pay raise. He got, he got promoted. He was the financial advisor for the entire project there. And he was doing really well. But yeah, Chevron basically bought out the whole company. So there was a lot of other Chevron people there too. So that was pretty interesting. But he was gone a lot. And I think maybe I'm trying to I've always tried to justify in my head why my mom felt the need to find comfort in other men. And either A, like she just wasn't satisfied, or B, she just like didn't care. And I'll never know. But she had to have felt like she wasn't getting something.
And the thing is too is I think that a lot of times people make the decision to be unfaithful because it's easier than just leaving or being honest and it's no excuse, but I think that that's just what people do. They're like, and I think too, to some degree, and this might not always be the case, but it's thrilling. People, it's like if you're living this like plateau, boring, I guess, life you could say, in a sense where, and not her life was boring, but it's like it gives you that little like spike, that thrill. It makes you feel young again excited. Or something. Right, and it's not right, but I think that there's so many different factors that play a role of why people make those decisions.
Right, 100%. What you said just made me think of something. My mom had everything. She had, unlimited money to spend. She had all these things. She had friends. She had drivers, nannies. And I'm not saying that like money makes everything okay, because it doesn't. But my mom looked like she was having the time of her life. I mean, she was going out with her friends and going on these trips. And it just, at the time as a kid, I was like, what more could she want?
Right.
But now, like, as I'm older, I get it, like that emotional connection.
Yeah, like, and that is so important. And I think everybody deserves that. Yeah. But no one deserves to go looking for that, like while you're still in something else.
Yes, right, exactly. And I mean, my mom and dad did love each other. I believe that they really did love each other. I mean, they were very happy for a long time. But she started cheating so early on. Because remember, like I said, like back in 1994, 95, 3 years before I was born, she had started sleeping with that other fitness trainer. Yeah. It's like a trend. I don't know what it is with her and fitness trainers. I don't know what it is. But it's a thing. Yeah. It's a thing. So essentially, Tara moves. She's gone. My dad's traveling a lot. We start seeing Arif a lot at the house. Oh, gosh. Okay. So he starts privately training my mom at the house. She converted a bedroom into a workout room, basically. So she bought a bunch of workout equipment and turned like the back bedroom into a workout room. And because my dad was gone so much, it made it so easy for her to see him. So I felt like as soon as Tara was gone, my mom started seeing him, like immediately. I won't know when the date was that she started actually, sleeping with him, but he started showing up a lot. And we kind of saw him as a friend. We call Arif as a friend. He was always really good to us. Like Titi and Bertine and the guards became very familiar with him. Like my sister and I looked at him like a family friend, basically. We would go swimming together. Like when he would come over after they were done working out, we would all go jump in the pool and we'd play games and he'd throw the ball to us. And after all this had happened, I'd felt like I almost betrayed my dad, but I was so young. I had no idea. Cause this was 2006, 2007. I was 8, 9 years old. I just didn't know any better. And I didn't think anything of it. Now, when I started to think more into it, I remember one day they were, working out in the workout room and I tried to go into the room and it was locked. And I was like, hey, open up. And they would not open the door. Now I know, Now I know what they were actually doing in there. It just escalated, I would say. And then my mom started bringing us to his house. with his kid. So he lived in Depok, which was like 45 minutes from where we lived. And she started bringing us, to his house to hang out and like play with his kid. And like he had a house that was being built, but it wasn't fully built. It was like, the houses in Indonesia for the people who aren't wealthy, it's pretty rough.
Okay.
Like think worse, like, like government housing here. Think like shacks.
Yeah.
Think like man-made homes, like by the person who owns that home.
Right.
He had the nicest house though in like the whole area. Like his neighbor like basically lived with a shack. His door was a tarp. So he was trying to build a home and he was making, I guess, a lot of money at the American Club training all these expats, all these, married, foreign, wealthy women. And he was building a home. We would go there all the time. And one day the home just started getting built really quick, like really fast. The home started coming together. And, I think I know now why. But at the time I was like, oh, the house is looking so nice because it was like the nicest house in the neighborhood. My dad started getting suspicious because some checks started coming back into his account. Chevron employees had a deal with an Indonesian bank to where they could cash US dollars for Indonesian rupiah, where the exchange rate was better.
Okay.
But it would take 6 to 8 weeks for the checks to clear. So you'd write a check, you'd cash it for Indonesian rupiah, but the check would be in US dollars.
Okay.
The check would go back to the US bank, but it would take 6 to 8 weeks to clear and show in your account. There were thousands of dollars of checks that came from the time of July, September, October, November of 2007. Like thousands. All of that was going into his house. My mom was writing these checks, cashing them, and building this man's house. He also showed up one day with a brand new car.
Oy.
So he had got a brand new car, a really nice SUV. And one day in about December, our horse stables that we went to had basically called my dad and said we're missing 7 months worth of payments for boarding 3 horses, lessons 5 days a week. Now think about how much money. That had to have been probably $50,000 because you know how expensive like horses are. Plus all the lessons, plus everything else, the food, everything. You had to pay for everything. So that happened. She also borrowed like $4,000 from my dad's friend for a special gift for my dad that he never got. So once all these checks just showed up in my dad's account, he had no idea like what was going on because
where's this money going?
Right. These were huge purchases.
Yeah.
And my mom hadn't bought anything huge that he could see.
Right.
All he saw was like a cash check. So he hired a PI, a private investigator through Chevron Global Security, which they provided to their employees. So in Indonesia. And they found everything, like where the money was going. They found everything.
Oh,
and basically they brought it, back to my dad. So it's 2008 now, January. My dad knows everything. He knows absolutely everything. He tells our security guards, do not allow Arif into our house. He is not allowed here. He will not pass our gate. Like, either shoot him or call the police. Because they did have guns because, we were living in a third world country and everything. We had like real security guards. Yeah. Most people did have that. And we were in like a locked gated compound with 2 homes. So it was me and our neighbor, gated compound, security guards. And I remember Arif coming by literally the day after my dad did that. And the security wouldn't let him in. My dad's outside. My mom's outside crying, screaming, like on the floor. I'm just standing there watching this all happen. And we lived down like a hill. So to get to our house, you have to go down a hill. And then there was our gate. My mom's like chased him all the way up to the hill to like, I don't know, say bye to him or tell him something. Like I'm going to sneak out to see. I don't know what she went to go see him about. But I just remember like her falling on the floor, just like crying. Like someone had just like died almost, and her like crying and running up the hill to go, I guess, say bye to him or something. I don't know what happened. But then she comes back and she's just like, her face is red. Like she's just been sobbing. Like she looked so hurt.
Was she apologetic at all toward your dad?
No, she was angry. She was, from what I remember, she was just like silent treatment angry, just like sobbing. Like, why would you do that to me? Like,
right.
But like, of course, I mean, if my wife was cheating on me openly with my kids there, right, taking them to her house.
And it was all of his money, right? Yeah, no.
Yeah. So, you know, I vividly remember her just like falling on the ground crying and chasing him up the road. Like, I just vividly remember that moment. And this is where their fighting started. We never really saw our parents fight. You know, my sister and I just didn't. We would like hide in this little bathroom, like by their room or by their study, and just listen to them fight. I don't know. I think that's just something kids do. I feel like it's very common. Like all people who have parents going through the divorce, they're like, oh, we used to listen to them fight and stuff. And one night, my mom punched my dad in the face. And she had been working out a lot, like weightlifting, boxing. Like Arif got her pretty buff. Mm-hmm. Like
so it was a hard hit.
Yeah. And I walked into the room and I just see my dad having to like pin her on the floor to get her to stop because she was strong. Like my dad looked shook up from that. My sister doesn't remember this, thank God. But he was holding her on the ground and just to get her to stop. Like he was like, stop hitting me. Stop trying to hit me. Stop hitting me. She called the whole family the next day and said that my dad was beating her. So I get calls from the family asking if my mom is being abused. I'm like, no, that's not what happened. That's not what I saw. But then my mom's in my ear, like, remember you walked in while dad was holding me down? Like that very manipulative, like, do you sure you remember it right? Like, didn't you just walk in when dad was holding me down? And I'm thinking like, did I?
Right.
Like,
you start to like question yourself.
Did I like walk in? Like, did I see her punch him? I heard it.
Yeah.
And I saw my dad's face because I heard a big smack. And that's when I walked into the room. And I just remember my dad grabbing my mom's arms, trying to get her to stop. It didn't look like he wanted to hurt her. Mm-hmm. My dad's never been an aggressive person ever. So like, why would it flip on a dime? So the family like knew things were going on now. Something bad was happening. Whatever it was, like something bad was happening. She was just like a very good liar. Now we kind of go into, after all this happened, there was a Phuket trip planned. Like I said, we always visited Phuket, Thailand. Mm-hmm. Phuket, Thailand's where that tsunami hit as well. Right. I had major PTSD from the tsunami. And my mom manipulated me into thinking that a tsunami was going to hit Phuket, Thailand if I went with my dad and my sister on vacation. She did this so that I wouldn't go and she could stay behind with me. Because if I didn't go, then she could be like, oh, Alexis doesn't want to go, so I'm going to stay with her because she's scared. But what doesn't make sense to me is if a tsunami was going to hit, why would dad and my sister need to go? But I don't know how she did it. But she somehow manipulated me into thinking that if I went, a tsunami would hit. She would be like, oh, remember like the devastation? Like, remember how many people died? Like, they're staying on the beach, like right where it hit. Like, you can still see debris and stuff. Like, it scared the crap out of me. So I was like, I am not getting on that plane. Like, I'm not going. You are insane if you think I'm going to Thailand. So my dad and my sister left for Phuket, Thailand. The next day, my mom says, we're going on a beach trip with Arif. And I'm like, well, what about this beach? Is a tsunami going to hit this beach? She said, no, tsunamis don't hit this beach. We're fine. So it was just like 100% like manipulation tactics, I feel.
Right, so that she could see him.
So she took me on a trip with her and Arif, like on a full lovers trip on the beach. And this is when I first saw them like actually like kiss and was like, oh my God, this is happening. Mm-hmm. This is what's happening. Yeah. So we went on a trip. We were gone for like a week. I think my sister and my dad were gone for like 2. So we left kind of like in the middle. It was like a day or 2 after they left, we left. And when we got back home, I was just told not to talk about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if she told you don't say anything.
She said, do not talk about it. She's like, if you talk about it, you know, dad's going to break up the whole family. Like, she was basically like, just don't talk about this. Like, threatening me, but not threatening me in her sweet voice. So after we got back, everything just felt weird. I was like, something's just like so wrong right now. Like, I don't even know what's happening. I was confused. I was like, why is my mom kissing another man? Why am I going on vacation with another man? I felt so guilty.
Right. And then you're like lying about it, like hiding it.
Yeah. And I'm terrified because she was like, dad's going to leave all of us if you tell him. Yeah. So I was just terrified. I was like, if he finds out, like, what if I ruin the family? What if I break up the family? A lot of pressure. For sure. And it just got like progressively worse with my mom's drinking. And there was a really big, I call it the Amigos incident. There was a Mexican restaurant that we all went to in Jakarta, Indonesia. I think it was called Amigos. I'm almost positive. And we would always go there, and I would get on stage and sing Sweet Home Alabama, and the band just loved it. There's like this little 8-year-old just singing on stage, and we'd go there all the freaking time. I mean, we would have so much fun. My dad was gone. He was on one of his work trips as normal. And on a Sunday when all the staff are off, so the staff are off one day, like in the other days, they had their own sleeping quarters and living quarters at our house, actually. But on Sundays, they went home to their houses. So we had no staff. We had one security guard on staff. That was it. And we went to the Mexican restaurant, and she gets obliterated, like bad. So we had to take a taxi because our drivers were off that night. So I guess she bumps into like a mutual friend. I don't know who this man is. Maybe a mutual friend, maybe like, I have no idea who this man is. My sister and I did not recognize him whatsoever. We just felt really weird. She takes him home with us to our house. So she takes this man home with us. My mom's like obliterated, like really it's bad. And they're hanging out and they're drinking downstairs. And my sister and I are like, you know what? We just don't really feel like comfortable. So we just went in my room. At one point, I guess my mom falls down the stairs or up the stairs and snaps her foot in half, breaks it. And this guy that she brought home is like trying to break down my sister and I's door. I don't know why, but I lock it. I freak out and I lock it. He's trying to like break down the door.
Was he saying anything?
I don't even remember what he was saying, but he was just like trying to break down the door. Like, come on out, guys. Like, I don't know, but I just did not I was like, I need to protect my sister right now. Right. Like, I don't know also, what's going on.
Him, so
I had no idea who this man was. So I'm like, I need to lock the door. And he's trying to break down the door as I'm saying, like, go away, like, stop, go away, go away. Like, he didn't mention anything about my mom falling or breaking her foot. So I don't know if she fell before this or after this. Okay. But at some point during all of this, she falls and breaks her foot. And he's banging on the door. And I have my phone, my cell phone, and I call my dad. It takes him a couple rings to pick up because it's like middle of the night. It's like maybe 2 a.m. He picks up he answers the phone, and I was like, Dad, there's this man in our house. He's trying to break down the door. I don't know where mom is. Like, I don't know if he's hurt mom because we just couldn't hear my mom. Yeah. Meanwhile, I guess she's like on the floor with a broken foot. I have no clue. And my dad just literally didn't know what else to do. So he put his pride aside for one moment and said, call a reef. He said, call a reef. A reef will know what to do with your mom. He's not going to hurt you kids.
Right.
Call a reef. He can handle your mom. He can handle the guy that's there. Mm-hmm. He can figure it out. So my dad called the overnight security guard, gave him permission for a reef to come in. And the security guard came into the house. Because we didn't know the security guard's number. He didn't know any of this was happening. Mm-hmm. So security guard came into the house and got the guy out. And as he's getting the guy out, a reef showed up. Like, I've never seen him get to the house that fast because he lived pretty far. Mm-hmm. A reef is pissed. Like, I just hear him screaming at this guy. Like, they're about to beat the shit out of this guy. I don't know what they do. I guess they call him a taxi and send him on his way. I don't know what happened, but he was gone. All I know is he was gone. And I hear a reef's voice. And he's like, open the door. Like, I'm here. Everything's okay. So after I heard Arif's voice, I just felt like relief because like I knew him. I knew he was a safe person for the most part.
Yeah.
He'd never been mean to me or cruel to me.
Right. Like him and your mom's relationship aside, that was somebody that
right.
you guys could trust.
Right. Because he'd never done anything awful to us ever. And I just remember like him making us noodles and like.
And where was your mom at this point?
Okay. So she had crawled under the bed from the top of the stairs all the way across the floor and under the bed. So she's just under the bed drunk with a broken foot.
Okay.
I don't know how she made it there, but she did. Okay. So
was
I guess.
saying anything at this point?
She's out, like unconscious.
So just like completely wasted.
Yeah, completely unconscious, like under the bed. And I just like, I think Arif didn't want us to see it. Mm-hmm. So he just like literally just took us downstairs, made us noodles. And he was like, I'll be right back. And then he went and checked on her or whatever. Next morning is Sunday morning. All the staff comes back in. I just remember Titi walking in and just trying to get my mom out from under that bed. Mm. And she would not get out from under the bed. Like it was just the strangest thing ever. So they get her out from under the bed, like having to like drag her. She's still drunk from the night before because this all happens at like 3 a.m. Titi gets in at like 6. Mm. So I guess they take her to the hospital. And I mean, she completely broke her foot. Like it was a bad fracture. She was in a cast for a very long time. So my dad came home early. Arif left, obviously, before my dad got home. He left that day after everything was sorted because, like, he knew, like, he was not supposed to be there. But, like, my dad put his pride aside to make sure my sister and I were safe. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he leaves and my dad comes back early, basically. And my dad's just done at this point. Like, he's so done. Like, he knows everything from the private investigator. He knows that my mom built a man a house. He knows my mom built a man literally a house, got him a car, did all these things. And he gives, you know, her an ultimatum and they divorce. He tells us, you know, your mom and I are getting a divorce. And my first reaction is like, oh my God, did I do something? Did I say something? But, you know, obviously it had nothing to do with us. So he gave her an ultimatum. He said, you stay here in Indonesia with Arif, and my dad would move to the United States with us. In order for them to get a divorce, they had to establish residency in the United States for 12 months. So regardless, either my mom or him was going to have to move to the US for at least a year in order to get this divorce done. So he said that, you know, you can stay in Indonesia with Arif, you know, do it. I'll take the kids and I'll move back to the US with them. Or you can take the kids, you never see Arif again, and I will stay here in Indonesia, finish out my contract, and then move to Australia, which is where his next contract was. And she chose us that time. You know, she said, I'll take the kids. And they filed for divorce in July of 2008 in Knoxville, Tennessee. So that's where my dad had moved us. So we get to Knoxville. It was really, really hard leaving Indonesia. It was so hard leaving our horses, our friends, like everything. Like it was just traumatic. And that was the first time I ever felt pain leaving somewhere. Because before I was so young, like it really didn't matter. That was the first time like I think felt like pain. Leaving Titi and my nanny was like the hardest thing ever. Because she like pretty much like raised me just as much as my mom did at that time. And, you know, at least at this point, you know, my mom did choose us kids. But, you know, we moved to Knoxville. My dad buys her a beautiful house, pays it off completely, buys her house in cash. He buys her a car, cash. She gets $3,000 a month child support plus $8,000 every 6 months from a settlement and a bunch of other money, basically. Moving to Knoxville was a huge adjustment. It was the first time we'd ever been to public school. We'd never been to public school before. And I was in 4th grade and my sister was in 2nd. We went to Cedar Bluff Elementary School. We lived pretty close. The only family that we had there was my Aunt Evelyn. She lived pretty close, which was good to have some kind of family there because my mom was a fucking mess. Like the plane ride home the plane ride from Indonesia to Knoxville, she got so drunk the flight attendants had to like get her off the plane like whenever we landed. Like she was a mess. She was crying every single day. Like it was like she was mourning the death of somebody. Like she couldn't function to even do anything for us kids, like as far as like cooking dinner or getting us to school. She got the truancy court called on her within like 4 months because she just never took us to school. Like,
and at this point, since you're back in the U.S., she didn't have any help, right?
No help.
Okay.
So no nannies, no drivers, no nothing. It was just her. And it was basically neglect almost. Like she never made us brush our teeth, never like made us take a bath. Literally all she did every day was sit on the phone with a reef all day, all night. And she started Western Unioning him all of our child support to the point where we lost power in our house for over a week because all of the money that was supposed to go to us and bills went to him. So we lost power. She said it was just a power outage. No, it wasn't, because everyone else had power but us. And I heard her talking to him on the phone that night, and she was like, I'll get you more money. Like, I'll get you more money. And this is when I realized that Arif wasn't in it for my mom. He was in it for my dad's money, just like he was for Tara, what he thought he was going to get too. He wasn't in it for my mom. It was all about the money, because he would get so mad at her on that phone, because I would listen. Like, I was very perceptive as a kid. And he would be like, if you don't send me this by tomorrow, I'm never speaking to you again. So he's manipulating her. This is when I start to see the evil in this man, the bad in him, because I'd never seen the bad before. And our power's out. We have no food. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're getting a crap ton of money. You don't have to work. Your house is fully paid off. You're getting $3,000 a month plus $8,000 every couple of months. Like, you have plenty of money. You don't have a car payment. My dad's paying the insurance on the car. Like, you have everything. Right. Like, you don't, like, why should our power be going out? Why should we not have food in the kitchen? That doesn't make sense to me. So, I mean, it just got progressively worse. Like, it just got worse. Eventually, my mom started, this is where it gets like bad, as far as like this reflects like pretty badly on my mom. She began crushing up like her Xanax prescription and putting it in our yogurt, telling us it was like melatonin to help us sleep, so that we would sleep and not bother her while she was on the phone with the reef. Because we used to walk out there and scream at her to get off the phone. And she would yell at us and freak out and like throw shit and like just have full on meltdowns. So she started crushing up Xanax and putting it in like our yogurt, because like I would not swallow pills when I was a kid, and just basically drugging us, like sedating us so she could stay on the phone all night and we wouldn't bother her. And then we just completely basically almost stopped going to school. Like we just never went to school. Like, truancy was always there, always getting letters in the mail, people knocking on the door. I was just drugged out basically the whole time, because like I was the one who was the main problem, I guess my mom saw, the main like boundary between her and Arif, because I was like, you will not speak to him anymore. Like, stop calling him, stop sending him money, because I knew at this point she had debt collectors coming out to her from phone companies. Like, she owed Verizon like $10,000. She owed AT&T thousands of dollars. She owed so many phone companies thousands of dollars from all these international calls. So like, she was going from one phone company to another, just running up these huge bills that she could never pay, like be way beyond even child support paying for. So, I mean, it was just like sad. It's like, you're really like, do you really love this man that much?
Right.
Like, are you just like addicted to him, like obsessed with him, like almost an addiction? And because like we weren't being watched over, I started to gain like a lot of weight. Like, my weight started to really kind of like spiral out of control. Like, by 10, I was like 190. Like, I started gaining a lot of weight. And it just, I mean, it went from like, we'd go to Walmart, she'd cash a check, it would bounce. Like, it was just like a shit storm. Like, it was just like a whole mess. You know, at the same time, like, I'm so angry too still. It's like, I just can't wrap my mind around how you can do that. It doesn't make sense to me. And like, I remember one time, like, they were arguing over money. Again, they were always arguing over money on the phone. And I walked outside and I grabbed the phone on my mom's hand and I said, I hate you, Arif. And I broke my mom's phone in half. Oh my God. She lost it. You would have thought that I had just killed somebody that she loved. She threw a wine bottle at me, was throwing pillows, breaking shit, throwing shit. I was terrified. So I called my Aunt Evelyn and I'm like, my mom is like trying to kill me, it feels like right now. Like I'm crying into the phone. I'm like, just come get me. Like, please come help me. Come help me. Come help me.
Was that your dad's sister? Or
that's my mom's. Okay. My mom's aunt.
Got it.
So my mom's mom's sister. So it's my great Aunt Evelyn.
Okay.
So this is my mom's side of the family who's living there. So I called my Aunt Evelyn and my Aunt Evelyn shows up and my mom's like, what are you doing here? Like a freaking switch flipped. She's like, what are you doing here? Smile on her face. Tears all of a sudden gone. She's like, what are you doing here? She's like, Alexis just called me sobbing, saying you're throwing wine bottles at her on the wall. And she's like, no, what are you talking about? Alexis was throwing a tantrum over something I can't even remember now. Like, it was so silly because she puts on this voice. If you've met my mom, you would know.
Yeah.
And she manipulated my Aunt Evelyn into thinking that I made all this up and called her for attention. So my Aunt Evelyn left that night. And my Aunt Evelyn tells me, like, to this day, like, one of her biggest regrets was not believing me. But my mom was so good. Like, she was so good at twisting the truth. She was good at manipulating people. And it was just
she was a good liar.
Yeah, pathological.
Yeah.
It was just like the smallest things. My Uncle David even said, like, as a kid, my mom would lie about anything and everything for no reason. So it was just like a constant. I mean, in Knoxville, my Aunt Evelyn, she had Zach and Chase, her two twin kids that were my cousins. They were into like some bad stuff. And their girlfriends, Maggie and Stephanie, my mom was like hanging out with them and like taking them to pick up drugs and like put me in the car one time when he went to go pay off one of their drug deals. She went to pay off a drug deal gone bad with me in the car. One of Chase's or Zach's drug deal gone bad at the house, I guess. I don't know why I was in the car.
How old were you?
I was 9-10 years old.
Okay.
9-10, yeah. I think I was 10 by this point because this is kind of toward the end.
Right.
Yeah, so I was about 9-10 years old and they're having sex in our house. Like my sister walked in on them having sex, like the teenagers. Okay. Like my mom just had a house basically full of Aunt Evelyn's kids and their girlfriends. And she's like buying them drugs and like participating and like letting them have sex in our house. And it was just weird.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if my mom was just like, this is a shitstorm. Like, let me just make it more shitty. Or I don't know what it was. Right. I mean, Chase wrecked her car high and then she got in the car and took the blame for it. Like,
bizarre, right?
It just doesn't make sense to me. It was just very weird. This is when we're getting close to the divorce being finalized here. Okay. So my mom starts to manipulate us into wanting to move back to Indonesia. So she starts saying little things like, oh, we'll go back and get a big house. We'll get Titi back. We'll get Bertine back. We'll get everybody back. You'll get your horses back. And like, that was like the one thing we missed the most was like our horses and our family at the horse stables we were at. So she started planting these seeds almost. And it's like she was slowly building it up. I was the first one to be convinced because I just missed my life so much. And I felt...
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Was she saying that she would go back with you guys or just mainly you guys would go back?
All of us.
Okay.
Me,
and then what about
my sister, and her.
And then what about with your dad?
Without my dad.
Okay.
So her intent was for the divorce to be finalized and to move us to Indonesia.
Okay. With what money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
Which my dad is now moving to Australia at this time. Right. So he's leaving Indonesia this year, going to Australia. It's like perfect for her. So my dad moving to Perth, Australia, he's getting out of Indonesia. So she's planting these seeds. She's building this up because once July 8th rolls around, she has custody of us. The divorce is finalized. She can take us anywhere she wants and do whatever she wants. So it took a while to convince my sister to do it without like flipping out. So I think I was easier to convince because like I always was just like a mama's girl, even though everything she put me through, like I always just like My sister was more of a daddy's girl. I was more of a mommy's girl. I think that's why it affected me more when she would drink, because it was so heartbreaking for me. And like, I always just wanted to be with my mom. Like, I wanted to sleep in the bed with my mom. Like, I wanted to always be with my mom. Like, the thought of being away from her was the most painful thing you could ever think of. That's how it felt for me. So she got my sister convinced eventually to move to Indonesia. So my mom said the plan was, it was the three of us. Arif was not going to be there. Arif was not going to be involved. Arif did not exist. It was just going to be the three of us, and Titi and Bertine and everybody that we loved would be back. She painted this perfect picture. It was like everything we were longing for and weren't getting in Knoxville was going to be waiting there for us. So, you know, as soon as July 8th, it's finalized. My mom tells my dad, I'm taking the kids to Indonesia, and there's nothing you can do about it, I guess. My dad's like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, are you sure that's a good idea? And she was like, I'm doing it. And right before we left, my dad planned like a trip to Galveston, the coast of Texas, to take me, my sister, his sister, my dad's sister, my Aunt Heather, and his mom, my Mimi C. So it would be us five. My mom was not going to be there. It was just going to be me, my sister, my dad, my Aunt Heather, and my Mimi C. And he rented a beach house. And he asked, you know, like, if you guys want to move with me, just let me know. Just let me know. He was just like, I'm just putting it out there. Like, if you want to move in with me, like, just let me know. And at the time, we were just so excited to get back to our old lives in Indonesia. We were like, no, like, I'm ready to, like, I'm so excited. Like, it was so exciting. After that trip, my Mimi and Aunt Heather took us to the airport. And this is how they found out my mom was drugging me with Xanax, because they saw her do it. Because I had no idea what she was doing. I could have never known. Like, she could have been doing that, and I would have never known if they had never saw it. They saw her take like the Xanax out of her pill bottle, crush it up, and put it into yogurt and give it to me. And they found out it was Xanax because they went in her purse, picked up the pill bottle, and saw what it was. So that's how they knew that she was basically sedating us so she could talk to the Arif on the phone, which still is just beyond me.
Right.
But she had us on a plane 7 days after that divorce was finalized. I think it was like July, maybe 17th. We were on a plane, and oh, my mom was so excited. She was so excited. And she promised like 45 million times Arif was not going to be there. Guess who was standing outside the moment we got off that plane? He was standing outside. And my mom I remember her like crying and running and hugging him. And my sister and I are just standing there like holding each other's hands, like just breathless, speechless. Like, oh, fuck. Just like, that's what, if me as an adult, that's the only way I can describe that moment. It's just complete shock. Just like, oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. But my sister and I were like, well, like, you know, we were trying to like justify the situation. Like, he's never been mean to us. Like, maybe this won't be bad. Like,
what happened when they saw your mom putting the Xanax in the yogurt? Like, did anything come from that?
They just told my dad, and my mom. They confronted my mom. My mom was like, "You're liars. Like, what are you?"
So
talking
it didn't really
about?
Go anywhere.
No, nothing happened of that. It probably should have, but nothing ever happened. Yeah, nothing ever happened because of that.
So she greets him.
Yeah,
you guys are like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, literally just standing there like frozen in time.
Yeah.
Is the only way I can describe it. And my sister and I are just kind of looking at each other, and I think we're both thinking the same thing. I think we're both kind of like, well, we're here now. Mm-hmm. He's never been awful to us. He's never hurt us. Like, maybe this won't be bad. Like, we're here. Like, what are we supposed to do? My mom had packed up everything we ever owned and put it in shipment, she said she put it in storage to have it shipped overseas to our new house we were supposed to have. So we had like a backpack and like one suitcase. That's all we had. And we didn't have our own house. We went straight to Arif's house and moved in with him. Within 2 weeks, my mom had a traditional Muslim wedding with him.
Wow.
So she converted him to Islam within 2 weeks, had a full traditional Muslim wedding. I just remember crying that whole day. And I was like, not because of like the religion thing. Like, I didn't care. Like, I didn't see religion, race. I grew up with people from every country. I was just so sad because I was like, this isn't my dad.
And it was so fast. And it was clearly all like hidden from you.
It was a plan. Within 2 weeks, the whole wedding in his backyard, the house that she built him, of course.
How romantic.
Yeah.
With your dad's money.
I know. And I just remember just like crying. I was just like, I was just so sad that day.
I'm sure.
It was just confused. But anyways, they get married. They obviously, my mom doesn't have a lot of money because she's spent it all. Mm-hmm. Arif assumes this giant $500,000 alimony check is coming. No, it's not. So that's what I found out later. He assumed that he was getting $500,000 out of my mom. But that's not how it works. You pay it off over multiple years in small increments. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. They didn't have a lot of money is my point. And they enroll us into this like Korean school. So it's not an international school. It's not a public school. It's like a Korean school where they like, it was just like, why are we going here? Not just like, why are we going here? Yeah. We don't fit in. We don't speak Korean. So we were put into this school.
Did anyone speak English?
Some people.
Okay.
Like the teachers spoke English and Korean, but like everybody there was Korean, except for maybe 12 people. So we didn't have any friends. Mm-hmm. My sister and I ate lunch together every day because they would all like purposely exclude us and just speak Korean. They wouldn't speak English, even though they could to us. So it was just me and my sister. I had gained a lot of weight too. So they had a uniform. None of their uniforms fit me. They didn't have anything that fit me. So they had to like order it. So everyone's in a uniform but me because none of the uniforms fit me. So I was wearing like normal clothes and like, I don't know, everyone just looked at me funny. Like, what is she doing here? Like, why is she not in uniform? Like I felt like such an outcast. And it was just so strange. Like it was just weird. And I struggled in class. They did like Mandarin classes. Everyone spoke Korean around me and like was like laughing at me in Korean. I could tell. You can tell when someone's talking bad about you in another language. And it was just so awful. It was just awful. It wasn't fun. And then one day, my mom picks us up. And I guess there was like an argument with her and Arif. And she literally picks us up and she's like, we're leaving. I was like, what? Like, what's going on? She's like, we're leaving. Like, we're going to go stay at Titi's house, my nanny. And I was like, oh my God, I get to see Titi. Like, I'm so freaking excited. Mm-hmm. She's like, we're moving to Titi's house for now, and then we're going to get a house. Well, I had heard them screaming about money and her being a liar. There's this little porch out in front of his house. And I remember the night before all this happened, they were yelling at each other on the porch. And they were basically talking about money. It was a whole argument about money. Next day we go to school. Mom picks us up and she's like, we're leaving. It's like, okay, we're going to Titi's house. So I guess at this time, I didn't know this, but my sister did. My mom was pregnant at this point with Shafi, who is my half little brother. And they had told my sister together, like, guess what? Like, we're expecting a baby. You're going to have a little brother, like an excited thing about a week before this had happened. But nobody had told me. I didn't know about it. My sister did, though. So my sister had told me, mom was pregnant at this point with Shafi already. And it was just strange. Threw us in the car. It said, we're leaving. We're going to go to Titi's and then until we find a house. So Titi lived in was poverty. She did have one of the nicer houses in the area, but like everywhere around her was like tarps and like shacks, and it was it was just very different from how we grew up. It was just different. There wasn't AC, there wasn't running water. It was just different. It was cute though. I don't know. They had a bunch of cats and dogs, and we would play with like the neighborhood kids, and they were like, "What?"
We found comfort in it.
Yeah, and they're like, all the Indonesia kids were like, "What are these two little white kids doing, kicking a soccer ball with us in the basically like the most impoverished part of Indonesia?" It was like all these shacks, just shacks on shacks on shacks on shacks, and it was just funny. I just like looking back on it, like. It just shows like how my sister and I grew up. We just didn't care. Like we just loved anyone who was willing to be kind to us, we just loved everybody. We were always very like open people. So, I mean, we found comfort. I mean, we'd go out and play and kick ball with them, and, you know, we'd play with the cats, and I don't know, it was kind of fun, but we weren't going to school at all. So I am 10. My sister's 8 or 9. We're not going to school. After we left Reefs and left the Korean school, we like didn't. We weren't enrolled into any school. So we weren't going to school. We were maybe at Titty's for 3 days before my mom started going back to Reef. So she would go back and forth in the beginning. She'd go, come back, go for a week, come back for 2 days, go for a week, come back for 2 days. And she rarely ever returned our calls. Like, we would call her, like, I remember calling her like 100 times a day, just like, where are you at, Mom? Like, where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? And she had a car. Like, she could have come seen us, but she was just going to see him. And then eventually, I guess she got sick of us calling her 100 times a day, and she'd come back and check on us and stay a night or two and then leave again. And then one of the like worst things kind of like that ever happened, even though this is so small in the grand scheme of things, I went to go ride horses at Central, which was the horse stables that we were at. And I get there, and one of the adults pulls me aside and says, "You are kicked out. You can never come back here." And I'm like, "Why? Your mom has not been paying any of the bills. You have $12,000 in back pay. Like, I should not be talking to a kid right now, but I'm so sorry. You can never come back here." So I was kicked out of the place that I love, the place that I moved back to Indonesia for, was kicked out. Like, I had a full adult sit me down as a 10-year-old and had to tell me that I could never come back again because my mom hadn't paid. I was destroyed. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, I am an idiot. I cannot believe that I moved back here. I can't believe that I believed anything that she would say. Like, I was so disappointed. And when I told Mom, she was like, "I'll pay it now. I'll pay it now. You can go back there." Went back there 3 days later thinking she had paid it. And the security guards at the gate wouldn't let me in. Like, that was so embarrassing. So all these promises, nothing's coming true. My sister and I just like sobbed and begged her to pay that bill. Like, please, like, that's the only place we're happy. Like, I'm begging you. And she kept saying, "Oh, I've done it already. That's so weird. They won't let you back in." Why do you think they would want to keep out 2 kids who've been going there for 6 years at this point? For just no reason? But I don't know. She just had a way with her. My Titi had to basically drag us out of Central screaming and crying that day that we were kicked out. Basically had to drag us to the car. It was pretty heartbreaking. It was our home. It was the whole reason I agreed to move back. It was just shit. Yeah. Like, it was just awful. It was the worst feeling. She was not coming home hardly at all at this point. So it was just me and my sister at Titi's entertaining ourselves daily, just with the neighborhood kids, not going to school. My dad had no idea that any of this was happening. Like, he thought that my mom had married a Reef and we were living happily ever after together, and we had a stepdad, but that was not the case at all. Yeah. I still don't know to this day, like, why my mom like put us in that car and was like, "Let's go." I think she was worried that we were telling him things, because the night that we left, I actually just remembered something that's pretty important. Arif had taken me out to dinner alone about a week before all that happened, and my mom like put us in a car. And he was asking me all these questions about my dad, and personal questions like, were your mom and dad still sleeping in the same bed like while they were together and I was with your mom in Indonesia? And I was like, yeah. And he was like asking me all these questions like, did your mom have to pay I wish I could remember, because it was the craziest things. Yeah. Didn't you go to the hospital and break your arm and all the child support money for that month had to go to you? And I was like, I never had to go to the hospital. I never broke my arm. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, weren't you supposed to move here in January and that's why you couldn't move, because you broke your arm and you were in the hospital for a week? I was like, no, we had not even thought about moving here yet. And thinking back now, I bet you money it was that. And he was asking, like, do you know how much money mom gets a month? And I was like, yeah, she gets like $3,000 a month. Like, I knew everything. I just was a very perceptive kid. I just knew things. He was like, she told me she was getting $10,000 a month. I was like, no, she gets $3,000. I know how much money she gets because I've asked Dad, because our power was going out and I needed to know like how in my like kid brain, like I need to know how feasible it was for like us to lose power. Like if we're losing power, like is she not getting money? And my dad was like, she's getting money. She's getting plenty. Because I mean, this was back in 2008. Everything was paid off. It wasn't like things were expensive. $3,000 with 0 bills is plenty to live on. Plus her $8,000 she was getting every 3 to 6 months or whatever it was. But anyways, I just thought about that because it makes sense, because he had like pulled me aside. And so I think my mom got us out of there because she didn't want us to ruin it anymore. She didn't want us to ruin it. I really think that's what it was, because he always asked questions, constantly asked questions.
Yeah, it was like easier, I feel like, for her to maintain a relationship with just her and him than with like her, him, and her kids.
Yeah, who are from another guy.
Yeah. A
guy that she like, you know,
and there's so many lies intertwined.
I know.
Right.
And then I blew up her lies, not even knowing I was blowing any lies up.
Yeah. And
my Uncle David, I talked to him on the phone, and he told me that before we moved to Indonesia, my mom had called him and asked if him and his wife could watch us for 2 months while she went to Indonesia to get settled. And he said no, because you're not going to come back and get those kids. So my mom was already planning on leaving us, but she couldn't find anyone to take us, basically. So the thought was there. The plan was there. It was just, how is this going to all play out, I think. So eventually, Mom did start taking us to look at new houses. She'd pick us up from Titties every once in a while. We'd stay in a hotel for 2 nights, like a nice hotel. She'd spend time with us, then drop us back off at Titties, and then leave for a week. And then she'd come home. Like, she was never, ever there. Yeah. And Titty wasn't getting paid this whole time. And she was still taking care of us.
She cared about you guys.
Yeah, like that was like my mom at the time. Like, she wasn't getting paid anything. She was pulling money out of her pocket to feed us because she was getting nothing. So, I mean, eventually we did find a house completely empty. It had 1 wicker sofa, a bed, and a TV. That was it. That was all it had. Huge house, no furniture. Our shipment of everything we owned, everything, baby pictures, everything we ever owned, all my trophies from horse competitions, everything we owned, nowhere to be found. She said that it was on its way to Indonesia on a ship. I don't know. Eventually, we moved into that house. But again, there's 1 bed and 1 sofa and 1 TV. There's nothing there. And she enrolled us into a school called ACG, which was an international school. It was just a cheaper one. So it wasn't like Patty Mora, which was a really expensive. It's called JIS, J-I-S. But so it was just the less expensive international school. Okay. So she enrolled us into that and asked my dad if he would pay for that, because my dad wanted us to be in school. Well, he should have paid the school directly and not my mom, because she didn't pay the school either. So she wasn't paying, and people were questioning me at school about it. Like the dean, they're like, we're trying to get a hold of your mom to see if we can collect payment for the school year. And I'm like, my dad should have paid it already. But like, I think my dad knew my mom was like kind of like sneaky and manipulative, but I don't think he thought he would take money for us to go to school and use it on something else, but she did. My dad visited for my 11th birthday, so it's like September now, and I'm turning 11, so this would have been like 2009. And when my dad saw us, like, I've seen my dad cry maybe 3 times in my life, and he just sobbed. Like, he was just like, just looking at us. Like, we just looked so broken. And we have a picture of us 3 sitting on the sofa together. And he just looked so happy just to be with us. And he threw a party for me at a friend of his house who worked with him, which was really nice. They let me have a party there because we couldn't have a party at my house because we had no furniture. We had nothing. And I think he realized the severity of the situation when he showed up because my mom didn't show up to my birthday. He was like, damn, like, he's probably thinking, you know, like, does she ever show up? Is she ever here? And, you know, he just cried when he left. He just cried when he left. I just remember him crying. And he gave us money privately, cash, and gave my sister and I each, I think it was like 1.4 million rupiah, which is like maybe like $200. He said, do not tell your mom. So he had to have known that something was going on. And he just wanted to make sure we had food. Like he wanted to make sure that we were fed, we were healthy, like we had things we needed. So he basically gave us that money, that cash, because I think he kind of knew that mom was using all the money toward a wreath. And we just kept holding out hope for mom to come home, you know. After my dad left, she was just never home. So we just kept holding out home. She was always gone. It was just Titi, my sister, and I just kind of hanging out in this empty house. We'd go to Titi's a lot, though, because it was just so boring. Mm-hmm. We'd go to this place called Tamani Kids constantly. It was like this kids' playground, and we'd spend all of our money, well, little bits of money that we had, like on ice cream and playing in this playground. And we just spend all day there and take taxis to and from there. And we just go back and forth to Titi's and play with the neighborhood kids. And we still rarely went to school. There was no accountability at all. So I feel like my sister and I were like, mom's not here. Nobody cares. Like, why do I have to go to school? Yeah. No one's holding me accountable for anything. We don't have any money for taxis to get to school. Titi didn't have any money. Titi's like, are we getting money? Like, you guys need to go to school. I was like, I have no idea at this point. Like, I just don't know. I have no clue. My dad planned a trip for all three of us to Phuket, Thailand in November of 2009. So this was, we moved in July. This was in November. And it was my first time to Phuket. I finally went because my mom wasn't telling me I was going to die by getting hit by a tsunami. Mm-hmm. So I finally went, and it is the most magical place you've ever been. We still go all the time. I love it there. And we went every single year. So we went to like this place called Bill Bentley's. It's like a pub, and you can play like what's that thing? It's like a shuffleboard basically, and you like roll the thing. And we would just play that with my dad. And I remember we were sitting at a window seat, and where we always sat, and my dad was talking about my mom in the situation. And all he said was, hey, you can always leave and come live with me, and I will be here with you. I will come get you. Like, you can always leave. And I just remember that so vividly. Like, he said it in such a comforting way, because I think he saw us and we just looked so miserable. And going to Phuket, that was like the most fun we'd had.
And what was your thought? Like, did any part of you want to go?
So I was so attached to my mom, and I held out so much hope that with this new house, like I just thought like our shipment was going to show up. We'd get all of our furniture. Mom would come home. She'd be there every day. Like, I'd be in school. I just held out so much hope, I guess. Mm-hmm. And my sister, on the other hand, she was always kind of more of like a daddy's girl. She was more inclined. Mm-hmm. And she's told me, when he said that, like, I really started thinking.
And he was in Australia, right?
Yeah, he was in Perth, Australia, had a house. It was just him. Mm-hmm. But he had already gotten a 3-bedroom house. So I think he was kind of like...
He probably was hoping too.
Preparing and hoping. We were close with my dad, but like, as I said, he did travel so much. And we had nannies and like my mom around, but like, we love my dad. Yeah. We just weren't as close with him. But my sister just, I think she really like felt at that moment, like, I think I want to leave. But we went back to Jakarta after that trip. And my mom had been gone for a while with no contact. I think it was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks this time. Probably like the longest she'd gone with no contact. And she finally came home one night, and she was on the phone with the reef the moment she walked in the door. Didn't like, hey kids, like, I missed you. She was on the phone with the reef as she walked in the door. And, asked her to get off crying, and she lost it again. Full-on meltdown, shoving the one piece of furniture we had in the house, that stupid wicker sofa, like throwing it, throwing pots, pans, like had a full-on meltdown. And my sister just ran and called my dad and said, come get me right now. Come get me. He was there within 2 days. And he was like, Alexis, like, I really think you should come. Like, please come. And I was like, no, mom's coming back. Like, mom's coming back. Like, she's not going to leave me. Like, she's coming back. Like, I was so delusional. And I think I was also so manipulated. And now that I think about it, like, without us kids, my mom wouldn't have been getting child support. She only would have been getting the $8,000 every 6 months. And I hope, like, in my heart, that's not the reason she kept us around, because that would destroy me. But knowing that we were, like, neglected and in this house alone, like, why wouldn't you call my dad yourself and say, come get these poor kids?
Right.
But then I'm like, what if she was just keeping us there? Like, because I've always tried to justify it, because even now when I talk to her about it, like, she doesn't give me the whole truth. Their story kind of always changes. And I don't think I've ever really wanted to ask her any of this, because I don't think I'm going to believe what she says at the end of the day. And I just hope to God, like, in my mom's heart, that she did not just keep us around for that child support. Because if you knew your kids were calling you 100 times a day, sitting alone in a house with no food, why wouldn't you call my dad and say, come get these kids? Like, why? It just makes you think, and it's just sad to think. My mom basically showed up once she knew my sister was leaving and came to see her off and said that they'd talk every day. And the last time my sister talked to my mom for about 5 years. I stayed behind, unfortunately. I just was so hopeful. I was hoping things would be so different.
How much did the dynamic change when your sister left? Or was it about the same?
So my sister left. Within 3 days, my mom was gone. Like, gone. So I had got this dog, this little Chihuahua. My dad, because I was like, can I get a dog? Like, I was so alone. Can I get a dog? My dad was like, yeah, fine. Like, he sent me money and let me go get this dog at this little pet shop in Indonesia. So I got this dog because I think I was just so lonely. So I got the dog. Like, the day my dad took my sister, like, he gave me the money to get the dog. My mom stayed for like 3 days, and then she left. We were in the house. Titi was with me. I was calling her hundreds of times a day. But, like, eventually Titi was missing her family. So we went to her house for a little while. This is where it gets hard.
Take your time.
So, basically, we went to Titi's house, and my memory of this is very blurry. I feel like when something very traumatic happens, you block it out.
Yeah.
And memories come up, like, later in life. But we were there, and I remember her husband, who was our gardener. His name was Arianto. He was our gardener. And I don't know what Titi was doing that night, but they, like, also sold food on the street to make money, because, like, at this time, like, they weren't getting paid for – Titi wasn't getting paid for her job of taking care of us. Titi was just taking care of us because she loved us. And I was asleep in the bed, and her husband came in, basically molested and raped me. I don't remember much of it. All I remember was it happening, and then everything goes black. And then I just remember running down the street, and I found Titi. I didn't tell her what happened. I was just crying and said I woke up and had a bad dream. And I just said, I want to go back to the house, like, now. Like, she was like, it's late. I was like, take me back to the house now. I want to go back to the other house now. Like, just take me back. She was like, why? And I was like, just take me back. Because I'm 11. I don't know what just happened. I don't understand what just happened. It's my mom's fault it happened. I should have never been left there. And so Titi takes me back to the house. And when we go back there, I refuse to ever go back to Titi's. And she's confused. She's like, why can't we go back? And I'm like, a part of me just didn't understand what happened. And B, I didn't want to blow up Titi's life because my life had already blown up so much. I was like, I can't hurt anyone else. I was like, I will die with this. I will never tell anybody this. I'm going to take this to my grave. I said, nobody's going to know. I decided at 11 that I would never tell anybody and I would take it to my grave. And Titi would go home at night sometimes. So I was alone at 11 in that house for some of the time. I told Titi to be like, Titi, go home. Like, it's fine. Like, go home for the night. Like, I'm not leaving. Like, I'll be here. So she would leave and go home and then come back and go home and come back. So at times I was just an 11-year-old in Jakarta, Indonesia, all by myself in this big house with nothing. And it was like middle of December by now. And, you know, we'd go out sometimes, like Titi and I would go to like shops and stuff, and we'd go to like an internet cafe. So in Indonesia, like a lot of people didn't have like access to home internet. They had internet cafes where you could pay like $10 and have internet for 3 hours and you could sit on a computer and stuff. So that's how I kept in contact with any other family members because I didn't have a phone. So I was emailing all my family, like, everything's fine, like mom's home, like just straight up lying, because I knew that if they knew that mom wasn't home, I was never going to see her again because they were going to, my dad was going to take me. So I was just straight up lying. And I remember one time I was in a cafe and these strangers came up to me and were talking about putting me in like a movie. And I thought it was cool. So like I emailed my Aunt Pam and my Aunt Evelyn and they're like, this child's about to get sex trafficked. Mm-hmm. So they emailed my dad and they were like, what is going on? Like, people are trying to put her in movies. Like your daughter's about to be like literally taken. Like, she's in Indonesia by herself. You don't have your security guards. She doesn't have anybody there. She says mom is back and forth. I don't know what back and forth means. I don't know if she's there every other day. Is she there every day? Because I was giving minimal information. And I would only go to the internet cafe like once a week. So that's the only time anyone ever heard from me. And then Christmas came around. And mom finally called me and said, I'm on like December 23rd. She's like, I'm coming home to see you for Christmas. I stayed up for 72 hours straight waiting at the door for her to come. I was so delusional. I went into like you know, when you don't sleep for a long time and you like go into like a psychosis almost, like I straight up went into psychosis. Titi said like I was like pulling at the curtains, just like screaming, like spend the night, just repeating spend the night over and over again, just pulling at the curtains. So I think I guess I was trying to tell my mom to come home and spend the night with me. I don't know.
And she never came? She
showed up on December 27th.
Okay.
And after I hadn't slept since like the 24th. Mm-hmm. So like I was like waiting because she said she'd be there on the 24th. And she showed up, I think, on like the 27th. I hadn't slept in like 72 hours. She finally showed up and she took me to lunch, and then she took me to Bed Bath & Beyond and got me like this little stuffed animal, and we ate. And she sat with me and she promised me that everything was going to be different. Like, she was leaving a reef, and that, you know, she finally told me she was pregnant and was having a Shafi. So she told me she was pregnant. We didn't know it was Shafi at the time, but she was like, I'm pregnant. It's going to be me, you, and him. Like, everything's going to change. Like, the furniture's coming. Like, I felt like such relief. I felt like I could breathe again. And we get back to the house, and I haven't slept in 72 hours. So I'm like, can we lay down and like watch a movie? Because we had this old TV. It only took like DVDs and stuff. We put on a movie, and I looked at her, and I remember saying, I was like, if I fall asleep, promise me you're going to be here when I wake up. Like, I'm scared to go. I told her, I said, I'm scared to go to sleep because I feel like when I wake up, you're going to be gone. And I fell asleep in her arms, and I woke up and she was gone. And I called her over and over and over again. No answer. By this time, I ran out of money. We ran out of food. Titi didn't know what to do. The night terrors began, so I still have them. I wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Don't know why. I guess it's just like PTSD still from then. So Titi said every night I just wake up screaming in the middle of the night. It was probably from like the rape too. It was probably just everything. And she said like my thing was I would go up to the curtains, pull on the curtains, and just start screaming. Or like I walk up to the door and like just start screaming, like sleepwalking, full-blown night terrors. And finally one day, maybe like the second week of January. So like my mom leaves the 27th. She comes see me maybe for a couple hours. So she leaves from beginning of December, comes home on the 27th, leaves again. It's the second week of January now. Nothing.
You haven't heard from her at all?
No. So I see her once in an 8-week period, 2 months. I hear nothing. So I went to Internet Cafe and I emailed my Aunt Pam and I said, Mom hasn't been home in a really, really long time. And I said, I don't have money. We don't have food. Titi has no money to feed me. She has her whole family to feed too. And I was honest with her. I said, Mom has been gone for 2 months except for one day. And I said not to tell anybody. Of course, my Aunt Pam called my dad immediately.
Hey guys, quick commercial break from today's sponsor, which is Rocket Money. All right, I don't know about you guys, but there are so many times that I will subscribe to something, whether it's an app or a website or some sort of like television provider, and I will completely forget about it. I don't even realize. Months will go by. I'm looking at my bills and I'm like, oh my God, I've been paying for this and I don't even use it. Over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Like I said, I definitely did. For example, all of the editing apps, when it comes to like different filters on your pictures, I literally subscribe to so many because I want all these different filters to try. And then I'm paying for all of them every month and I don't even use them every month. And this is where Rocket Money comes in, because thanks to Rocket Money, I am no longer wasting money on those subscriptions that I have forgotten about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, you can see all of your subscriptions in one place, and if you see something you don't want, Rocket Money can help you cancel it with just a few steps. Something that I absolutely love about Rocket Money is on the dashboard, you can compare your savings and your spending from like last month or the last couple months to this month, and you can see all of your spending habits. You can see if you're saving any money, exactly how much you're saving, and they can also help create a budget, which is really, really important when it comes to saving your money. Ever since I've been using Rocket Money, I have found so many subscriptions that I haven't been using. They were able to be canceled, and I have saved a good amount of money. And let me just tell you, every dollar counts, and who doesn't want a couple extra dollars in their pocket? Because I know I do. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/allinsane. That's rocketmoney.com/allinsane. rocketmoney.com/allinsane. And now back to today's episode.
And they called her and my dad was like shocked. He was like, what? Like, I thought Mom was back and forth. Like, that's what Alexis has been telling me. That's what everyone's been telling me. That's what Missy has been telling me. So I guess he was kind of like in contact with my mom. She's like, oh yeah, I just left Alexis. I don't know. But he was shocked. And he showed up within like 3 days. And I did not want to go. I was like, I'm going to hate you if you take me. But I didn't know any better. I was just like so attached to my mom. And I think I was like trauma bonded too in a way. And I had so many months of hope built up that I just wanted something to come of it. I just was like I just wanted something so bad to happen that she said. I wanted something to come true that she said for once. I just wanted anything that she said to come true. And my Pam was like, go get her right now. If you don't go get her, Aunt Evelyn and I are getting on a plane and going to smuggle her out of the country if we don't have to. My dad's like, of course I'm going to go get her. I had no idea. So, you know, my dad came and got me, and my mom showed up out of nowhere to say bye. I didn't know she was coming. She didn't let me know she was coming to say bye. And I just remember her telling me bye. Like, I'll talk to you every day. Like, we'll see each other all the time. And I was like crying. I was like, why are you letting them take me? And she was just crying. And she was like, it's just not a good time. Like, it's just not a good time right now. Like, it's better that you're with your dad. But I think like if I hadn't emailed my Aunt Pam, like how long would I have been there by myself? Mm-hmm. How long would I have been in that house with like no word from her? Like, would she have ever shown back up? Like, I still think about that to this day. And it's just crazy. After everything, I didn't want to go. I still can't rationalize it. But anyways, you know, I said bye to her. And then on January 17th, we left. But the day before we left, we stayed in a hotel while we were getting everything together. All I had was a backpack of clothes. That was it. I didn't own anything else. My dad paid Titi a lot of money. And my biggest thing was Titi has to come with me if I'm leaving. I was like, Titi has to come. He was like, it's Australia. Visas are not that easy. It's not the same. Like, I can't take her with us. Like, I want to, but I can't take her. So at this point, screw mom. Like, I don't want to leave Titi. Like, Titi's everything. And Titi's like, I can't leave my family. And like, I'll come with you if I can, if they'll let me. My dad's like, the Australian government's really strict about like people coming in on work visas and stuff. They're like very, very, they're one of the hardest countries to get into and get citizenship or anything like that. So it just like wasn't feasible. So my dad basically paid her months worth of pay that she needed. And I just remember Titi crying and hugging him and like saying like, thank you for coming to get her. Like, please take care of her. And leaving Titi was like the hardest thing for me. I think even more so than my mom at the time, because I was so used to my mom leaving and coming and going. I think leaving Titi, that was just awful. But, I left. I didn't tell my dad really much of anything that happened at all while I was at the house. I didn't really say much of anything. I was angry. I was a very angry kid. So when I moved, I was 11. He had this beautiful like house in North Beach in Perth, Australia, like just totally magical. It was gorgeous. Like the kitchen was upstairs. Everything was upstairs. The bedrooms were downstairs, but he had like a 3-bedroom house. It was like he was preparing. It's like he knew that we were going to be there eventually. And it was just him, my sister, and I. And, my sister showed up with a backpack. So did I. We had nothing. My sister, she didn't want anything from Indonesia near her. She had like a very... like she was almost scared of the clothes that I brought and she brought. So we threw everything away and just got all new things because like she had been through so much. I'd been through so much. Like I didn't want to trigger her trauma. I didn't want to do anything that was going to hurt her. But I was also pissed off. I was like, I don't want to, like, this is everything I have. So my dad at this point, he's trying to find out where all of our stuff is, our baby pictures, everything we ever owned. My mom never paid the storage and it got auctioned off. Everything we owned, even stuff from my dad's, like their pictures, like all of our stuff from Indonesia, all of our things we collected, the art we collected, the rice chest, the Buddha heads, every piece of furniture, every photo, every journal, everything gone because my mom put it in storage and I don't think she ever intended to pay it, let alone ship it across the country to be with us. So he had to tell us that we would never have our stuff ever again. Because we were like, can you find out? Like, can we get our stuff? He's like, yeah, we'll ship it over here now. Like, a lot of that furniture's mine. Yeah. But it was auctioned off like months and months ago. So we lost everything. It was almost like we like started over completely. So we got like all new clothes, all new everything. And we were just like traumatized. And like when we first moved to Australia, it was just hard. Like, again, like I barely see my dad cry, but I just remember one night he just broke down crying and he's like, this is all my fault. He's like, I should have never let your mom even take you to Indonesia. And I was like, this isn't your fault. Like, I love you. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I should have called you to come get me sooner. I shouldn't have lied. And he's like, you're 11. Like, I am a father. Like, I should have come and got you. Like, this is my fault. And like, I truly think that my dad just didn't know. Because I don't think he wanted to believe it either. Because he was with my mom for 22 years. So I don't even think he thought that she could do the things she did. Right. I really don't. So my dad just basically had to pick up the mess that was left. So we're in Australia. We could not get into the international school because it was full at the time. So he put us in this Catholic school. And it was called like Our Lady of Grace. And uniform did not fit me. I was gaining weight again. I was like 200 pounds by the time I was like 12. I'm 5'11", I'm tall, but I was still big. Uniforms didn't fit me. So like I had issues. Like I would want to wear like the shorts and like the polo, but you had to wear the dress. I get sent home like every day and had to go change my uniform and go back to school. My dad's like, why won't you just wear it? I was like, I don't know. I want to tell him like I hate myself. Yeah. And I think I just had such low self-esteem. I'm like, my mom didn't even want me. Like I hate myself. I was like, I have to be worth nothing for my mom to literally just leave. So when I got to Australia, this is when the hatred started. Like the pissed off, like, oh my God. Like, I think the reality of the situation set in. Like, my mom just willingly left me. And I used to tell people, like, I wish she died. Because it would have been easier to tell people that my mom left me unwillingly because she had no choice. Right. Other than my mom willingly chose to leave her kids for a man that she was obsessed with. Like, how are you supposed to explain that to people? Mm-hmm. So I would just be like, oh yeah, my mom's just gone. I would just say that when people would ask, because it was just me, my dad, and my sister. So, you know, I used to get in trouble a lot at school. I was acting out. My dad hired a nanny briefly, but it just didn't work out. I think we were just rebelling against everything. I think we were just some pissed off kids. I mean, we had every right to be. We were just angry. And my sister and I just really clung on to each other, like really like just needed each other during that moment. We finally got into ISWA, which is the International School of Western Australia, and things started to get a lot better once we got to that school. That school had from first grade to 12th grade, like 240 kids. So there was 20 kids in the graduating class. It was like 15 to 20 kids per class. So 10th grade was 15 to 20 kids. So you knew everybody. Everyone knew everybody. You were in 9th grade, you knew everyone in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. So it was a very like close-knit school. There was like over 100 nationalities there. Like, it was just like a big diverse group of people. Again, some very wealthy people too, like diplomats. Even my dad's boss was there and his kid, and everyone just knew everybody. It's kind of like the vibe it was. But for me, everyone there was skinny, pretty, perfect, foreign. Like, I don't know, like I just felt so ugly and just out of place. And I just really just hated myself. I really just did. I felt so unwanted. Like the guys would like hit on all the other girls, but like make jokes about me. And it felt like, so in a school that small, they have like a parent list. We were the only kids on the parent list with one parent. So in my eyes, even though this probably wasn't true, I was like, everyone's living this perfect life around me and I'm just fucked up. I was like, everyone's perfect. I'm sure their lives weren't perfect, you know, but in my eyes at 11, 12 years old, I'm like, you know, by now I was 12 when we got into this school. I was like, everyone's living this perfect life and they're all pretty and they have two parents and they have moms who pick them up from school, and I'm taking a taxi home because my dad's at work. And it was just hard. And I was 5'11" by this time, like I grew really quick and I was just always tall. And I just felt like big. I was like, I'm tall and big. I just felt so out of place. Like I was like easily the biggest girl in the school. It was a small school and it just felt awful. And people always would want to be friends with me to be friends with my sister. She was always pretty, skinny, small. Like guys would like talk to me to like come over to my house just to like say hi to her. And like I felt very like used. I always felt like the second choice, I guess. I always felt like the second choice. And I was so jealous of my sister too. But my sister equally has just as much self-esteem issues as I do, which is the craziest part. But like my whole life, all I ever dreamed of was looking like her. Yeah. So it's just crazy kind of how that happens. And I started making friends. I had a good group of friends. You know, there was a couple people, you know, like that I remember, like Augustina, Erwan, Ina, Ingrid. They were all from all over the world, Netherlands, Mallorca, Spain, Korea, a bunch of different places. And sometimes I felt like they were only my friend because my dad would just let all my friends sleep over, even the boys. Like we would all just hang out. And like my house was like, not the party house, but the hangout house. And I don't know if it was just my insecurity, but I felt like people befriended me because my dad was so chill and none of the other parents would let a bunch of people just sleep over, especially guys. My dad was just kind of like he knew I wasn't sleeping with anybody. Like he just knew we were all just friends and hanging out. And, you know, he'd let us go out at night. Like we would bike to the beach at like 2 a.m. and just ride down the beach at like 12, 13 years old. But the environment was so different. It was so safe. Guns are illegal there. I never, ever got in any incident where I felt unsafe in Australia, even as a kid. Like, I mean, we would walk to the beach, bike to the beach at 2 a.m., watch the sunrise up the street from the house. Like, it was a beautiful place and it was safe. I started drinking very young. So like 12, 13, we were drinking. But it was kind of like the culture. The drinking age is 18 there. Everyone's drinking, like smoking hookah, smoking cigarettes. It's just kind of like, I think you could buy cigarettes at 16 there. I might be totally wrong about that. But it was just kind of like the normal. You know, things kind of just went by and we just tried to like forget about everything. Mom never called, you know, so we just tried to like move on, you know. and just like never bring her up. Eventually we moved from the North Beach house to another house. It was in Wembley Downs. And when we moved to that house, things did start to get a lot better because I started making like more friends and like actual friends, I feel. Like people who actually liked me for me and didn't just want to be friends with me for my sister or be friends with me because my dad let us do whatever we want. They were some of the best years of my life once I got settled, I would say. At some point, though, I think like 2 or 3 years into my mom being gone, my Aunt Pam and my Aunt Evelyn are like, there's no way Missy left her kid. There's no way. She has to be kidnapped. She has to be like held against her will. So they called the U.S. Embassy in Indonesia and said, there's a U.S. citizen there who we think is being held against her will at this location, because they asked me for where he lived and I gave them the address. I'm like, go for it. They, I guess, went there. She said, oh, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm happily married. I'm good. They called my Aunt Evelyn and my Aunt Pam back and said, sorry, we can't discuss this case anymore, but this case is closed. They were like, what? So they called the embassy here in the United States and had them look into it. And they called them back and said, look, we just talked to the agency in Indonesia. They went by there, did a wellness check, and she looked totally fine and said she was fine, did not need to be extracted out of the country. But we can't discuss it with you anymore. Case closed. Like, there's nothing we can do. We cannot force someone who does not want to leave. So after they told me that, I was like, yeah, she left willingly. It's what I've been trying to tell you guys. Like, she had a car, she had a phone, she could have always called, could have always showed up, but she chose not to because she wanted to spend time with the Reef. And they were fighting the whole time about money that she promised him that was never coming. Mm-hmm. And now that we're out of the picture, he's not getting any of the child support. So I don't know. That kind of comes into it later, but is what it is. I know less money started coming when we left because my dad had custody of us now. After that, I was just kind of like, she left willingly. Like, I'm going to move on from her completely and move on with my life.
So were you guys talking at all at this point?
No.
Okay.
Like, my mom, when we left, she never called again.
Did you ever try to call?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. I think I tried for about 2 weeks. And then I gave up. Yeah. I was like, she wasn't going to call me while I was living there. Like, she's not going to call me when I'm in another country. Yeah. So due to my weight, like, I started going to the gym a little bit. And I remember, like, this so vividly, like, this guy in class, like, making fun of me. He's like, there's no way you go to the gym. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. Yeah, I do. Like, I'm working out. And it was just awful. It was just the worst feeling ever. And, like, even though I was working out, like, I could not lose weight. Like, I was barely eating. I wasn't working out. I mean, I was working out, and I just could not lose weight. So I found out I had PCOS, which I found out later, like, really contributed into, like, my weight gain. So time went on. Then in about 2012, my dad is with this girl called Kate. We had no idea that he was seeing anybody. We had no idea about anything. We went to visit our family for Christmas and came back home because we'd always go see my mom's family. Even though mom wasn't a part of our life, we were still really close to my mom's family. So we came back from our Christmas yearly visit to see our family, and there's this woman, like, living in our house. Mm. And my dad's like, this is Kate. She's my girlfriend, and you're going to see a lot of her now. And I was like, well, that's wonderful. I feel betrayed once again.
Yeah.
Like, you should have told me. So immediately, my sister and I are like, let's hate her, because what the hell? Like,
yeah, there was, like, no gradual introduction.
No, there was nothing. And I was like, Dad, really? And my dad, even to this day, he told me, he was like, I fucked up so bad with that.
Yeah.
He was like, I messed up so bad. He's like, I could have gone about that any other way. And that's what I love about my dad, is he admits when he messes up. If you just tell me you're sorry and you fucked up, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I understand. Like, I get it. So then he proposed to her without telling us, and then sat us down at dinner and said, hey, I proposed to her. Then they got married. And he didn't invite us to the wedding.
He didn't?
No.
Oh, God.
It was all very fast. So, like, 2012, then they're married by 2013.
Okay.
I just felt lied to and betrayed. And she did not approve of the way he parented us. So, like, we would try to go out to our normal, like, we would always just go to the beach in the middle of the night. I remember one night we were trying to go to the beach and she was like, you're letting your children leave this house at 10 o'clock at night? And he was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm not about to change their entire life because of what you say. And he's like, you know, even if you don't agree, like they're going to the beach with, you know, Augustina and I know, like they do every weekend. They always go to the beach at night and watch the sunrise. Like that's their thing. Like that makes them happy. They're not doing anything wrong. And I just remember her like screaming at him, like, and I was like, oh my God, this girl's about to come in our life and try to be your mother and parent us. I was like, this is not going to happen. So I just got pissed and started rebelling. I met a lot of friends outside of school where I felt like I fit in more. Like older people, like people in their who were 18, 19, 20 when I was like 14, 15. I felt like I fit in more with people like that. It was hard for me to fit in with people my own age because I had to grow up so fast. I just was really hard for me to connect. And like I would meet guys outside of there and nobody looked at me, this ugly, big girl, because I wasn't surrounded by all these perfect, pretty, rich people. Like I was just normal. So I felt seen by people who weren't in my school. Like this one girl, Lucy, like funniest girl I've ever met. She introduced me to like all of my Australian friends. I met her at a Flume concert in Australia. And she's just, I love her to death. I still talk to her now. And she like just made me feel so loved. And I never had another girl ever make me feel so loved and so special like Lucy did. Yeah. Like I never had a girlfriend that really made me feel like I was everything I needed to be. And there was nothing more that I needed to do to be any better, that I was just perfect the way I was. And she was also had like, you know, mental issues a little bit too. And like, she was just funny. She was just like the best. And she like made me feel safe. Again, went to visit a family that next summer. Went to see Cameron and Dakota. So Cameron's my cousin that I'm really close with, and Dakota's his best friend. They're like our brothers, we basically call them. And we just stayed in their apartment that whole summer and got drunk and ate Taco Bell. Like it was just like the American summer, because there's no Taco Bell in Australia. There's no Dr. Pepper in Australia. There's no Strawberritas. There's like there's none of the food culture is very different. Yeah. So it was like one of the best summers ever. I remember drinking like 12 Strawberritas and getting drunk on his floor at like 15 in his kitchen, and I can't look at a Strawberrita to save my life ever again. But we had a really good summer. But when we came back, we find out Kate has a kid and he's living in our house now. So not only did my dad not tell us about Kate, we come back to find out that she has a kid that she didn't raise. So I'm like, oh, so she's a child abandoner too. Mm-hmm. So he's living in the house now across the room from my sister, sharing a bathroom with my sister, which made her really uncomfortable. He was very odd, never spoke to us, just like hid in his room all day and would like tattle on me. Like if I was playing music loud in my room, even if I was alone, he'd call Kate and be like, Alexis is throwing a party in her room. And then Kate would come and like bang down the door, and I'm sitting there listening to music by myself in the bed. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. Like what is going on? So it was just awful. But yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't fun. I just really didn't like Kate. But we moved to we found out we were moving from Australia to Mississippi, which was like, you are kidding me.
Right. Another huge, it's like constant huge changes.
Like that totally different world.
Yeah.
So we find out in 4 months we're moving to Mississippi. I was like, Mississippi? Like, no offense.
Yeah.
Like growing up where we did in the Mississippi is like a whole different world. I was like, no. But
right,
you know,
how many
we
times
had to.
Can you like readjust?
I know.
Readjust
I know.
And,
and it's like, it was just a shocker. But I was like, okay, I guess this is happening. And I remember before I left, Erwan, one of the first guys I was friends with when I was in Australia, he was one of the ones that I always thought was just friends with me because like my dad, and he would just let us party or whatever. He wrote me a letter, and I kept the letter for so long, and so sad. Someone stole a bunch of stuff from me and I lost it. But he basically said like, you are such a good person. Stop letting people take advantage of you. Stop letting people treat you like you are less than what you are. He was like, I am so sorry for what me and Ingrid and everybody else did to you. And I'm so sorry that we ever made you feel the way you did, because I know whether or not you told me or not that you did feel like we were using you. And the letter basically said like, know your worth. Stop compromising for people. Stop trying to change to be what you think they want you to be.
Yeah, to like fit into the mold.
Yeah. And I just remember like looking at that letter and I was like, that just kind of like changed my whole perspective. I was like, damn, I was like, at least somebody saw me, you know, at least somebody got it. And I was really appreciative of it. So it was bittersweet leaving, but we left and we moved.
Kate came too?
Kate came too.
And
her son did not.
Oh, thank goodness.
She threw her son back to China.
Okay.
Which again, I'm like, so you married another child abandoner?
Yeah.
So threw her kid back to China. We moved to Mississippi, summer 2014, right before I turned 16. We spent the summer in Texas and Houston while my dad was getting everything set up. We started smoking weed then with our friends. The only friends we ever kept in touch with throughout our whole life was Caitlin and Danielle. We went to school with them when we were like 2 in Texas, and we actually like kept in touch with them our whole lives. So that is when we first started smoking weed and stuff. And it was like such a fun summer. I remember we were like driving through a parking lot listening to Thrift Shop on like the loudest it could go. Yeah. And someone hits us and runs. So we get in a hit and run and we're just sitting in the car, Thrift Shop's blaring in the background, and we're just sitting there like, what the fuck just happened? Cop pulls up. Our music is still blasting because the car's like broken. We can't get into it to turn the music off. It was just like the most humiliating but weird situation that ever happened. And I was like, this describes my life right now.
But
like,
memorable.
Yeah, broken down, Thrift Shop playing in the background, just trying to make it through. And I was like, this is my life. This is a symbol for my life. But we moved into the house in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. It was fun. But we were supposed to go see our family that summer, my mom's family. And for some reason, they were like, you can't come see us. We're busy. They'd never done that before. So that's why we went to Houston while my dad got the house ready instead of going to see like my mom's family. Cameron, my cousin, who I talked about, he messaged me. He's like, how crazy is it that your mom just came back with 2 kids? I said, what? He was like, nobody's told you? I was like, no.
So they didn't want you guys to come because she was coming back with her 2 new kids.
That I didn't know about the other one. So she showed up with 2 kids, 2 backpacks. She was like 90 pounds, severely underweight. She looked like emaciated. Showed back up with 2 kids. Nobody told me. I was so pissed that nobody told me. And I was like, of course she shows up back in America the year we come back to America. Right. Like, how ironic.
And were both kids by what was his name?
Arif. Yeah. So they were 2 and 4 babies. Mm-hmm. He thought I knew. He thought someone told me. Like, someone should have told me. Right. And my dad didn't know. My sister didn't know. You know, my mom was in rough shape, though. That's all I do know. She maintains that he beat her. I do believe that toward the end he did because of the money. I think she made him a lot of promises like she did me and everyone else in her life. And I don't condone beating somebody ever. I think it's horrible. That, you know, he should have never done that to her. But what I think happened is the money stopped coming. My dad paid off the settlement, ironically, the year before. So the money stopped coming, and I think he just threw her off to the side. He pretty much said, I'm done with you. And he started dating somebody else, which I found out through Facebook. So she left. When she left, and like the month she got there, he was already posting pictures with another girl. So I think she left not because she wanted to, but because he was done with her and done with her money. And I do think that he is a horrible person. I think he was nice to us when we were kids, but I think he's a bad person. I do. I was just shocked. I was pissed and I was hateful. And I was just like, I'm just going to try to pretend she's not back. So I started Ocean Springs High School. First time I ever rode a school bus, ever. It was big culture shock going from like an international baccalaureate degree school in Australia where I was barely making C's to like not putting in any effort and getting A's and everything. I was learning nothing. I took choir, met some friends like Mackenzie, and, you know, I didn't feel as fat there because everyone was so much bigger in America. So I felt kind of normal for the first time in my life, even though I was probably up to like 220 at this point. But I'm so tall. So, I mean, I kind of felt like normal for the first time. I didn't feel like, I felt like I was just chubby. Yeah. I didn't feel like I stood out like a sore thumb. there was a huge divide within like rich and poor in the school, which I'd never seen. Big divide with racism, fights, security at school, things I'd never seen before. So it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was a really big adjustment. You know, I'd never seen racism. I'd never seen a divide between class like that, like middle, lower, upper, and how the upper class people would not speak to like people who were, you know, living in the trailer parks. Like it was such a big divide. And it made me sad. I was like, why is it like this here? Why can't it be the way it is other places? It just was hard for me. But around Thanksgiving in 2014, I decided I was going to go see my mom. I was like, I need closure. I need something. I just need something. And I don't know if I just wanted peace or just to yell at her. I don't know what I wanted. But I got there.
So did you reach out prior to going?
Yeah.
And she said that you could come see her?
Yeah. I didn't say much else. I just said, hey.
And was she with her family still at this point?
Yeah. She was living with her mom, my Mimi D, in their little house.
And when she came back, she never reached out to you?
No. No, she didn't. I had to reach out, which I felt like I shouldn't have had to, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to because I need something. I remember pulling into my Mimi's house and her running out the house to like hug me. She's like 90 pounds soaking wet still. Like she just looked sick. Mm-hmm. And she hugged me and she's crying and I just felt nothing. I just felt so numb. I was like, I don't even know who I'm hugging. Like who's touching me right now? Like I just felt so numb and I don't know. I felt so odd and uncomfortable, but I was trying so hard to be forgiving because I wanted answers, I think. But I also had told her, like when I got there after thinking about it, I was like, can we just not talk about anything? Can I just get to know the kids? I was like, I really don't want to talk about what happened because I'm not going to believe you.
Right.
And I told her, I said, I'm not going to believe anything you tell me. I don't want to hear your excuse as to why you left. I just want to get to know my little brother and sister. Can we just spend these next, 4 days, just me getting to know them and just have a decent time and we'll talk about everything else another time. She's like, okay, I respect that. So we did that. I just kind of hung out with the kids and got to know them and then just went back home.
And what about your sister? Did she have any interest? Or no?
She didn't at the time.
Okay.
She did eventually end up going to see her for Christmas. And yeah, my sister's very close with my mom now, actually, like a much, much closer than I am because she ended up moving with her. So yeah, I basically got back to Mississippi and I got my first boyfriend, finally. I was like, oh, I don't feel like such a, awkward person. And I kind of opened up a little bit more. And he was a really nice guy. Like, I really liked him. He was a year older than me and he was graduating that summer. So we were smoking weed every day before school in the car. And I became really good friends with his friends like Logan, Isaiah, River, and I. We all hung out. And my dad let them sleep over. He always trusted me. He was like, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it anyways. Like, let it happen at my house. Mm-hmm. Kate did not approve. She did not like them. And my friends were always so scared of her. Like, she would just be waiting in the kitchen, like listening through the door. Like, it was just weird. Mm-hmm. And all we were doing up there was watching like animal documentaries, high as shit on weed. And my dad didn't care. He was like, it's weed. They're going to smoke it anyways. And, July, River left and went to Mississippi State. It just hurt. I think it was because the first time anyone ever cared about me and it just hurt. And Kate was getting on my last nerve. I couldn't deal with her anymore. And I was like, I need to leave. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of Mississippi. So I went to go live with my mom for 6 months. And she was living in this like mansion from this friend of a friend that she knew like for free. I'm talking like 8-bedroom house with a whole separate house underneath it, like apartment. So we were there.
By herself?
And the 2 kids.
Okay.
And then the person who owned the house was in and out. And I was like, oh, cool. And she was like, we're going to stay there. We called her Nana Joy. We're like, we're just going to stay there. That did not last. Mom pissed her off within 6 weeks and we got kicked out. I also found out River had cheated on me. So we were trying the long distance thing. He cheated on me. I was like, of course my first boyfriend cheats on me. So he cheated on me and called me and told me and broke up with me. And then we went to live at my Mimi's house. My Mimi's house is beautiful, but it's tiny. It's got 2 bedrooms. So it was her, my granddad, me, my mom, my little brother, my little sister, this tiny, tiny house. My dad finally got me a car, which was good. I started at East Ridge High School. I was set to graduate a year and a half early. So I was graduating at 17, 2 months after my 17th birthday. So I was just ready to get out. Eventually, my mom found a trailer next to my Uncle David and moved us into there. I had never seen a trailer park, let alone live in one. But I was like, you know what? We're doing this. We're here. So I moved in and we made it cute. And I used to like draw and like color in these like the felt, you know, like the felt things and you color them in and like call them my trailer park art. And we put it all over the walls. And like, I don't know, it was such a weird time. And it was so weird being with her and her acting like a mom. Like she'd wake me up with coffee every morning and like make me dinner. And I'm like, this is so weird.
Right,
like
what's going on?
Like, I don't know. Like it was so weird for me. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to try to forgive her. I started working out a lot and I lost 60 pounds like quick. Lowest I'd ever been since I was like 9. I got down to like 172. Right now I'm like 160. I got down to like 172 and I felt so good. And like people started looking at me differently. I'm like, damn, like people are so superficial. Like pretty privilege is so real. People started being so nice to me. Boys would hit on me at the school I went to. Like I had friends. Everyone wanted to be my friend. I had like a car, like things were good. And I really didn't care much about the school because I was like, I'm leaving in 6 months and I'm going to Mississippi State University. So I applied to and I ended up getting in to Mississippi State. So I lived with my mom for about 6 months and then I went to Mississippi State University at 17, like 2 months after my 17th birthday. So I was a baby. So I got in a dorm and it was the best 6 months of my life to only end in the beginning of the worst. I had the best 6 months of my life, that first 6 months I was there. Best friends. I mean, Ashley, Carter, Colin, Matt, Gabby. I remember every single one of them. And that's when the drugs started. I started doing Adderall a lot just for school. And I was getting good grades. I was going to all like my things. I was going to a lot of house parties though. Drinking a lot, Adderall, Vyvanse, Xanax, started doing all the things that everyone else was doing. Started smoking cigarettes. Like we would sit outside and smoke a whole pack of Marlboro Reds and listen to Tracy Chapman on the corner of a gas station. Like it was just, yeah. I started weightlifting a lot though. So I was taking the Adderall and working out a ton. So I was like 150 pounds, like just muscle. Like I was running, I was lifting weights. I felt like the best I'd ever felt before. And I was like, I only feel good when I'm skinny. That's it. Like, and that's as sad as it is. I feel like people really treat you differently when you're small versus when you're big. And I refuse to get big again. And a lot of that led into like the harder drugs too. About summer of 2016. So I went to Mississippi State January 2016. Summer 2016, went home to my dad's while he was gone pretty much for the whole summer. It's just me and my sister. We were just doing a bunch of Xanax and stuff. I got a tonsillectomy at 17. So when you're older and you get your tonsils and adenoids out, it's a much rougher surgery. And the recovery is so much harder. They put me on like liquid hydrocodone for like a month and a half. And I just got that taste for it and was like, this is the best thing ever. Like seriously, the best thing ever. And guys that had like not looked at me in school before at Ocean Springs High School were in my DMs messaging me, seeing how I looked now. Cause I went from like 230 to like 150. I lost a lot of weight. So they were all messaging me. And one of them was Michael. He was a really good person. And it kind of just became me, Michael, Will, and Graham. And we just like lived at my house the whole summer while my dad was gone with my sister. And you know, we weren't doing the best of things. You know, we were getting barred out a lot, doing a lot of Xanax. Will really liked my sister, and so did Graham. But my sister felt more comfort in Graham because of his heart. His dad had died from cancer, and Graham was still reeling from all of it. He had the biggest heart. He was the kindest person. And we had so much fun. I remember like something so vividly is there was this place called St. Martin Lake where you could like rent cabins and there was a lake and stuff. We went like barred out with a bag of oregano and we were going to sell it to these kids as weed. And we get to St. Martin's Park and we give it to the kids and Graham runs back in the car. He's like, drive. They like cut us off and call the police. I'm like, you just called yourself on like a fake drug deal. Like you were trying to buy drugs. Like, why are you calling the police right now? So he called the police and said we stole the guy's phone. I was like, no, we didn't. What are you talking about? So they like searched our car, and I just remember Grandma and I sitting on the curb, like in handcuffs, like what's going on? Eventually the cops figured out we just were selling them oregano.
Yeah.
And just let us go. And they were like, whatever, these stupid kids. And we got banned from Martin's Lake, and our pictures are like in the office. And we just became really close. And he's passed now, and I'll get into that in just a second. At the end of the summer, we met my dad in Aruba. So we were supposed to go to Aruba, and I was on so much Xanax that completely barred out that I don't remember getting there. I woke up in Aruba, had no idea how I got there, asked my sister, where am I? She was like, we're in Aruba. We're in Aruba. I was like, no, we're not. Like, there's no way I don't remember a whole 24 hours. Well, I didn't. And Michael and I ended up ending our relationship while we were there. It was very short, but we were still friends. He's always been a good person. So I was like withdrawing from Xanax after doing like so much of it and all the liquid hydrocodone. So I was just drunk, hammered. Got so drunk they had to fish me out of the pool in Aruba. It was embarrassing. And it was just not good. It was not good. And I mean, benzo withdrawals are not good. So I was just like drinking a lot. I was just like, whatever. And I went back to Mississippi State University. Ashley and I had gotten an apartment together, and this is kind of where everything went downhill. I just met some bad people. I met, good people and bad people. I was at a friend's house, and it was Tim, Dakota, Dolph, and some other guy, I can't remember, and someone broke in. Well, didn't break in. They were coming to buy weed from us and acid. And I just had a weird feeling. I just didn't feel comfortable. So they came to smoke a blunt or whatever. He was like, oh, I know these guys. They're cool. I was like, whatever. I was studying or something over there. They came in the house. They were smoking a blunt. Me, Dolph, and the other guy walked outside because I was just like, I feel weird. Like, I don't know. And we were smoking a cigarette, and we hear screaming inside the house. Like screaming, banging. And Dolph goes to knock on the door. I'm like, do not knock on that door. Like, what are you doing? And the other guy's like running down the stairs. That guy flings the door open, puts a gun to my head, says, get in the house. And so we're like, okay. And they were like, and he calls down to the guy downstairs, if you don't get in the house, I'm going to shoot her. So I go in. Tim and Dakota are on the floor with their hands tied behind their back with zip ties. We're all sitting there. They tie everybody else up. But I'm like, if you tie me up, I'm going to start screaming. So why don't you just let me sit here and you guys do whatever you need to do. You guys do what you got to do. Don't tie me up because I will freak out. And this guy, all I can say is he reminded me of the Joker. He was like orange hair, creepy. He was like petting me. He's like, I'm so sorry you're here. You're just at the wrong place at the wrong time. He's like whispering in my ear, kissing my forehead. Like it was the creepiest thing ever. And they put all of our phones in the sink, drowned our phones, went through everything in the house. I guess they suspected we had thousands of dollars there and all these drugs. We had nothing there. But like 2 hits of acid and like a little bag of weed and $40. So they came here thinking we had all this money. Spent an hour and a half basically. Like they pistol whipped Dolph in the face. He was bleeding everywhere. They were threatening to kill me the whole time. They were using me as leverage. And Dakota and Tim were like, there's nothing here. So they searched the whole house for an hour and they just left. And I was not allowed to call the cops. I wanted to call the cops. And Tim and Dakota were like, you're not calling the cops. Because we did have stuff here. We do stuff. So you're not putting anyone on the radar. And I called my dad about that. My dad was like, well, you should have been studying and not doing drugs. And I was like, well, I actually wasn't doing drugs this time. I was studying. I was just at a bad person's house. And that really traumatized me.
Oh, I'm sure.
Bad. And then my birthday comes. 3 days after my birthday, Graham died. He got in a car accident, wrapped around a tree 1 minute from my house. And it destroyed my sister, like killed her, like destroyed her. She started doing really, really heavy drugs like meth with this girl, Mackenzie, who I was friends with in Ocean Springs from choir class. And my dad finds out. I'm at Mississippi State. Everything's good. My grades are good. My dad finds a bunch of meth in the house when he comes home. So he calls me and he says, you're moving your sister up to your mom's right now. I'm not dealing with this shit. I was like, I'm in college. I have classes. My dad's just like, I'm not dealing with this shit. She's on meth. She's crazy, blah, 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 blah. He's like, you are moving her. And that was the biggest mistake my dad ever made because I went down there, met all the people my sister was using with, and then started using with them too. met a guy, basically to fast forward, like ended up dropping out of school for him. He got me strung out on Opanas, which is like hydromorphone, oxymorphone, which is like one of the strongest painkillers. They don't even make them anymore, I don't think, for the most part, because they're so highly addictive. I started smoking meth every day. My dad stopped talking to me. I isolated myself from everybody. I was with this guy. His name was Earl. And I mean, it was literally like living in squalor. I mean, the trailer had mold growing throughout. Like the carpet just was covered in dog and cat pee and poop. It was awful. And I was sick all the time because of the mold. And it was like literally living in hell. So like I moved my sister to my mom's, got her safe, got her away, and then I got pulled in because it was so tempting. The first time I smoked meth, I was like, oh my God, I'm not hungry for the first time in my life. I was like, oh my God, I feel pretty and confident and strong. And it is like that in the beginning. And then one day it's just not. You just need it to function. You need it to feel something, and everything goes dark. I feel like meth is like the devil. I feel like that's the only way you can describe it. It's like a demon, and it changes you. You first do it, you're happy, you're excited, it's enticing. 3 months down the road, you're seeing things. You're so anxious you can't function in public. You lose everything. You sacrifice everything. You're doing things you never thought you would do. It like comes and just takes you almost. It like makes you, it's someone who you don't even recognize. Like I would look in the mirror and just not recognize myself. And then just I would say like the Opanas got worse. And then it was going into like heroin and things like that, because like Mississippi was like the only place you could still get Opanas because of like the regulation and stuff. So, and they were expensive, like $100 for one pill. That's how expensive and desirable they were. And they tried to make them into plastic so that people couldn't shoot them up, but you could find a way. You'd basically take a hair straightener, melt it down, cut it into little pieces, hit it with a torch, put it in the back of a soda can, put water in it, and pull it up in a syringe. I surprisingly did not shoot up for 4 years. I was the only one out of everybody who did not shoot up. And I kept it. I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I got out so many times. I moved into so many people's houses who wanted to help me. But every time, Earl would go to that person's house and steal something from them and get me kicked out. So every time I found hope, he would ruin it. Like there was this one girl, Carly, who lived on the Air Force Base, and she let me come there. And I had stopped doing drugs for like the first time in like 2 years. He broke into her house and stole all of her dad's medicine. And her dad had to like kick me out. And it was horrible. And I just remember getting so angry, like, you keep ruining everything for me. Then I moved in with Lulu, and he was stealing from Lulu. He was stealing from me. And his dad, like, literally attacked me in his front yard, punched me in the face because I wouldn't send him nude pictures in order for rent. He said, you're going to send me money or naked pictures?
The dad?
Yeah, his dad. Money or naked pictures. I said no. So I slept in my car for 3 months in his driveway. One day I went to like go in the house to sneak in to take a shower. He found out, punched me in the front yard. My boyfriend did nothing. There was a hurricane. We went to go stay at my dad's. I called my dad. I said, Dad, there's a hurricane. Can we just come for like 2 days? And he did not want to, but he was like, whatever, come. Him and his dad plotted the whole time for him to go there and steal from my dad. So we leave my dad calls me, cussing me out, like, you stole from me, like, you're never gonna see me again. I had no idea he even took anything. I go through his phone and they're like making fun of me, like, yeah, go to that rich bitch's house, steal all her shit, like her dad's stuff, like, fuck her. Like, it was awful. Like, it was disgusting. And it got to a point where it was just so dark. Like, I mean, I tried to kill myself. It was just horrible. Like, I was looking at myself in the mirror and like hallucinated a demon and was like, I'm killing myself. And he like grabbed me as like there was a knife to my throat because I was literally hallucinating because I had not slept in a week. That happens like when you're doing this kind of stuff. And thank God it wasn't the end of it, but I got arrested for something I didn't do, but I got arrested on a warrant. They held me in the jail, did not tell me why I was being held there, which was the worst part. Yeah. For 3 days, I had no idea why I was in jail. They would not tell me. Finally, I find out it's because the guy I went to Walmart with 2 weeks ago had a stolen credit card. He said, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. Will you swipe this card? And I swiped the card. I didn't know it was stolen, but they charged me with it. And my boyfriend. So I called my mom. And one thing I'll say about my mom is whenever I'm in trouble, she always finds some way to bail me out. And I think it's because of the guilt she has from leaving me. She's trying to make up for it. Mm-hmm. So she called my dad. My dad got this fancy lawyer, got me out of jail, got me put into rehab, and all my felonies were expunged. They were able to prove that I didn't do it, which thank God, you know. And after getting out of rehab, my stupid self, you know, I move in with my mom. But I call Earl and I'm like, come see me. I miss you. Dumbest thing I could do. I relapsed within like 2 weeks after getting out of the Focus. It was called like Focus Health Rehab Center or whatever. And my sister and her friends were all doing fentanyl. This is when fentanyl at first came out, and they were making the pressed Roxys, but the fake Roxys that were fentanyl. So they looked just like Roxys. They had the M stamp on it, but it was just pure fentanyl. So we started smoking those. And it just got worse. Eventually, the best thing that ever happened was Earl got arrested and put in prison for multiple months. So I was able to escape him and the abuse. And like stay away. I was able to I couldn't call him. Right. So then I was able to reflect back on everything that happened and like, I need to stay away from this man. Mm-hmm. So that was the best thing that could have ever happened. I met Tanner after that, my best friend, and we got an apartment together. Pretty rough at this point. I shot up for the first time and I kind of knew it was like, this is bad. Like I made it 4 years without ever putting a needle in my arm, and I'm doing it now. Yeah. You know, it was just me and Tanner. Like we would panhandle, and it was just crazy. Like it was just so opposite of how I grew up. It was just so weird. It was so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Like I'm the kind of person now, like if I'm away from my house for more than 2 days, I freak out. Like I need to be home. I need to have all my stuff. I got to have money in my bank account. I don't know how I was living by the edge of my seat, just out of my car, just going from gas station to gas station, panhandling for money. Like, I don't even know how I was sleeping in my car and like not knowing where I was going to sleep when I was with Earl. Because now like I'm the complete opposite. Like I crave the comfort of my own home, my own bed. I didn't have my own bed for like 4 or 5 years. And like, it's crazy now looking back. Like, I don't know how I did it just because of the type of person I've always been. And I think it's just the drugs just took over completely. Yeah. That none of that mattered. Who you are. Yeah, none of the comfort mattered, none of it. And, you know, Tanner was the only thing that kept me going. I'm so grateful to him. And eventually I called my mom and I said, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. Not because the court's telling me I'm ready to get clean. Mm-hmm. So I went to a detox center, and then I went to English Mountain, which is a rehab, and I begged Tanner to come with me, but he wouldn't come with me. Mm-hmm. So I got clean. And I was there for like 55 days. It was the only time I ever actually participated in rehab. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm actually gonna like, okay, like I'm gonna try. Like I didn't really have intentions of staying clean when I got out of rehab though. I was like, I'm just like gonna do this, but like, let's see if it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then I got a phone call that Tanner died. And that was like the worst pain. Yeah. Like to this day, one of the hardest losses like I've ever gone through. And that's the only thing the reason I stayed clean. I was like, I would have been with Tanner that night because we lived together for 6 months. We did everything together. Yeah. The guy who sold him the drugs, Domino, is in prison for second-degree murder. I knew exactly who it was when they said Tanner died. I knew exactly who it was, and they found him. And it made me decide to live, I guess. So when I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and I was in the halfway house and I found out Tanner died, I was like, you know what? I'm actually not ever going to do drugs again. It was like the desire to use drugs was sucked out of me. Like for the first time in my life, I wasn't craving anything. I didn't feel the need to use anything. I wasn't dreaming of drugs. I pictured a life without it. It was like him dying. And, I don't believe in much, but I do believe that he just, I don't know, somehow gave me the will to live, somehow gave me the will to I feel like he took the need to use drugs out of me when he died. And I hate that happened. I wish he was here because I begged him to come. But I finally was like, I'm going to stay clean. And I kind of bounced around like house to house, like renting rooms from people. Ended up staying with this really creepy guy named Keith. And the only reason I moved in with that guy is because he said I could get a dog. So that's when I got Mia. I got Mia right out of rehab. Mm-hmm. My pit bull. She was 2. I rescued her from a shelter, and she saved me too. Having someone to be responsible for her totally saved me. Yeah. And I love that dog. She's like 8 now, and she's still, I don't know, she still looks like she's 4. Mm-hmm. I don't know. She's just like the best thing that's ever happened to me. And, you know, the guy I lived with, I fell asleep on the couch one day and woke up and he was jacking off to me sleeping.
People are sick.
And he was like 50.
It doesn't even surprise me. It's
like,
it's
I'm not shocked.
Right. Sick.
So I feel like the trend in my life is being constantly betrayed by people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like constantly. Like this guy, I looked at him like a dad figure and he was so kind to me when I moved in. Then when I broke up with my boyfriend, he was like, come to the laundry room and fuck me. I am not even 21 at this point, okay?
And the sad thing is almost like you don't want to be negative and say like, I can't trust anybody. But then you have the same, it's like you almost have to put these walls up because you have to protect yourself.
Like, look at the trend of my life. Right. It's abandonment, betrayal, and lies. And just like, I just feel like my trust has always been so betrayed.
And I do have a quick question. So you moved to North Carolina for, was it for the rehab or was it for the halfway house? And that's just where they placed you.
Yeah. So when you're in rehab, they give you options. So like, oh, you can go to California, you can go to North Carolina.
But did you know anybody there in North Carolina?
No. Okay. Nobody. I was like, it's perfect.
Okay.
They want you to go somewhere where you know nobody, where you don't have connections to drugs.
Got it.
They also don't encourage you like going with other rehab members because this one girl was trying to get me to go to California with her to a rehab. And that's how people relapse. Yeah. You relapse, they relapse. They want you to like go out on your own, basically. Okay. So I was like, nobody knows me there, but my sister's 3 hours away from there. So I'm so close to family. Mm-hmm. I'm so close to my mom if something happens. Like it was just, it made the most sense. And I looked up Asheville, and Asheville's beautiful. It's got mountains. It's very healing. They have a big recovery community there. Even though I don't participate in that anymore. I stopped going to meetings and stuff because it caused more harm than good for me. Yeah. I feel like meetings can help people, but every time I went to a meeting, I left wanting to use drugs more than I ever did.
Yeah, and it's whatever works.
Right. Work for you, it's so different. Yeah, it's so different. And, you know, I stopped going to meetings and moved out of that Keith guy's house. I called my dad crying. I was like, this guy's going to like attack me.
He's sick as fuck.
Yeah. So like when I caught him jerking off to me sleeping, he tried to break down my door. And my dog was about to kill him. Yeah. She was in full attack mode, barking at the door, jumping at the door. I'm on the phone with my dad. Get me out of there. So I got out of there within a day and found an apartment. And my dad's like, I'll pay your rent. Like, I'll pay your rent out for a year. Like, this is not your fault. Like, for once, like, you're clean. You're doing the right thing. Like, this is not your fault. So I thank God that my dad believed me because it took a long time for my dad to gain my trust back because I'd gone to rehab twice now. I betrayed him in his eyes so many times. But I had been clean, you know, now for like a year. And he was finally like, I trust you. I'm going to get you this apartment. And you know, I got that apartment and everything I thought was good, but I just felt like I was living a lie. I don't know. And COVID hit. And then in August 2020, I had a total mental breakdown. Went to the psych ward, but it was the best thing I ever did. I came out of that psych ward a different person.
Really? How long were you there?
A week. So I was supposed to go for 3 days, and then they involuntarily committed me when I tried to leave. So they basically got me on Suboxone. So sometimes they use Suboxone or Subutex for people who are currently withdrawing from drugs, which is like withdrawing from opiates is the worst thing in the world, especially fentanyl. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. But I was having such bad cravings that was what was causing me to be depressed, is I was having dreams about drugs. I was doing all these things and I didn't want to use because like, as I said, when Tanner died, like I didn't want to use. So I was struggling so hard. I was like, I'd rather die than use drugs again.
Right.
So that's how I felt. So they put me on Suboxone. Oh my God, saved my life. I've been on Suboxone for 5 years now. And 4 years now. About 4 years because I went to that mental hospital about a year after rehab. And I have not thought about drugs, dreamt about drugs, considered drugs, or even desired drugs. And it makes me so sad that a lot of people are like, oh, if you're on Suboxone, you're not clean. Like, I have a 3-bedroom house I pay by myself. I support myself and my sister right now. What do you mean I'm not clean?
Right.
I'm a organized, working individual who's happy. And after you've been on Suboxone for a while, it's like taking a multivitamin. You don't get high from it. Right. It doesn't affect your mood. It just takes away the desire to use drugs. So like when I started, I was on like 16 milligrams. Now I'm down to 2. So I take the lowest dose possible and I just take it once a day.
Yeah.
And it works so well. But after the like rehab and everything, I gained weight very fast. I got up to almost 300 pounds.
Wow.
So I was up to almost 300 pounds. I started dating this guy. Let's call him Brad. He was a raging alcoholic, very mentally abusive. But like abuse was all I knew. Right. And I just like Earl, abusive, this guy, abusive, not physically, but mentally, you know. And he moved in with me really quick. It was a really fast relationship. He started to scare me after a while. We were together for like 2.5 years. We went through the apartment and then we got a townhouse together. He was a transmission technician for cars, but he had a lot of debt, like a lot of debt. So like I was supporting him. I was a manager at a hotel. I was basically supporting him, paying all the bills. He chipped in when he could, and he was drinking a lot, like to the point where it was affecting me at work because I knew every day I was going home to a drunk man who would act like a child. When he would get drunk, there was nothing you could tell him. I can't even explain it to you, the way he would act when he would drink. It was like he would turn into a belligerent child. Like he would start seeing things, hearing things, making things up. You'd be sitting in complete silence in bed. He'd be like, you never, ever listen to me. Like, why aren't you even responding right now? I'm like, you haven't spoken. What are you talking about? He'd bring up a whole argument and make it up out of thin air. And I just started to get scared he was actually going to hit me. One day he did spray cleaner down my throat because I was cleaning something and it actually got on his arm while he was drunk, and he grabbed the bottle and sprayed it down my throat. And I just was shocked. And I was like, I never thought he would get like physically abusive. And I was so big and hated myself so much that I was just like, I just deserve this kind of life. Like this keeps happening. Nothing's changing. I'm not using drugs, but I'm not happy. Yeah. I'm not using drugs and I'm not happy. I'm in a horrible relationship. And I was like, I want to lose weight, but nothing was working for me to lose weight. So I went to the doctor. And by this time I had rolled back into college. So I was going to college for hospitality management at a technical school. So it was like a 2.5-year degree. And about December 2022, January 2023, I heard about like Mounjaro, Ozempic on TikTok. So I went to the doctor in January, and it's the first time I went to the doctor in a while. My A1C was 7.1. So I was a type 2 diabetic and had no idea. So I wasn't using insulin or anything, but I had like just been diagnosed. So they were like, we can get you approved for Mounjaro. So I got approved for Mounjaro. Within a week, I lost 12 pounds, sucked all the inflammation out of me. So I have PCOS and chronic inflammation caused by PCOS. And that was why I never could lose weight, because I was so inflamed. And like when I would work out, it would cause my inflammation to get worse, because when you work out, you retain more water. Yeah. That's why I could never lose. And also, I'm just addicted to food. Like when I got out of rehab, food became my new addiction. Right. It's like a transfer addiction, basically. So February 8th of 2023, I did my first shot of Mounjaro, lost 12 pounds in a week, 20.7 pounds in a month. And I said, holy shit.
Something's working.
Yeah, finally.
Right.
And I was like, wait, oh my God, what the fuck am I doing with this guy? 2.5 years of this, literally got home from work that day, broke up with him that day. I said, we're done. You. I said, I am worth more. I deserve more. And you know what? He didn't even argue. He was like, you know what? You do deserve more.
It's better that way.
Yeah, he didn't even argue. He was like, you know what? You do deserve more. And for the first time in my life, I felt like the first spark of confidence in myself. I didn't need drugs to be skinny, because honestly, like a huge reason I'd use meth is because I wasn't hungry. And that's crazy to say, but that's just the truth. Like when I was on meth, I wasn't hungry. I felt pretty. I felt skinny. I felt all these things. And I was like, wait, I can do something that doesn't alter my mood. I can actually lose weight. My PCOS is better. They told me I would never have children. I went to the doctor about maybe 8 months ago. I'm fertile. I can have children now. So I thought my whole life I couldn't have kids. Like this medication has completely changed my life. So I lost I mean, I lost 20.7 pounds in a month, 42 pounds in 3 months, 70 pounds in 6 months. And it just kept falling off of me.
That's incredible.
It just kept falling off of me. And I got my breast augmentation in November. I was down about 110 pounds at that point. So I started planning out all the work I was going to do. I documented from my first shot ever on TikTok. And I kind of just blew up on TikTok.
Oh, that's amazing.
Through documenting my journey. And I started growing my platform a lot. And I, right before my breast augmentation, I had a video go viral and it had like 4 million views and it just blew up. I had to delete it because TikTok changed their community guidelines where you can't talk about weight loss now. So I had to delete my entire journey on TikTok and move it all over to Instagram, which was crushing.
That is crazy. Yeah, TikTok is so...
I can't talk about my health journey.
That's wild.
Yeah, so it sucked. But
yeah, TikTok is,
it's just annoying. And but anyways, so I got my breast augmentation done. Then I planned for my tummy tuck and everything. I was like, I'm going to do that at the end of my journey. And I had my tummy tuck March 20th. So I got all my loose skin removed. I got liposuction of my like upper flanks. I got my stretch marks lasered. I did everything. I lost 122 pounds in 50 weeks. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And about like November, a company called Join Amble reached out to me. So basically these medications, you can never find them. They're in shortage all the time. No one can get access to them. So when that happens, the government allows FDA-regulated compound pharmacies to make the exact active ingredient in the medication so that people can still get their medications.
Okay.
But instead of paying $1,200 like you would at CVS for Mounjaro, you can pay $299 a month. So Amble reached out to me and I was like, I will not work with a company unless I can afford it as a broke college student. So you better come with the lowest prices out of anybody because there's so many of these pop-up telehealths that are like selling these meds and some of them aren't even FDA regulated. And so they were like, they hadn't even created the company yet. They were like, we're looking for people, who believe in this and this has worked for, and we want your input too. I was like, oh, wow. So they signed me in November. They didn't launch till February. So I was there the whole time through like the building up of the company and seeing all the pharmacies. They got the contracts with the best FDA regulated pharmacies. And we have the cheapest semaglutide, which is the active ingredient in Ozempic, and the cheapest tirzepatide, which is the active ingredient in Mounjaro. And I have people who have since signed up through me and lost 60 pounds and email me and say, you changed my life. And I'm like, I never thought I would get to do this as a job.
Right.
So I quit my full-time job and now I just help people.
I love that. And it's something too that I feel like resonates with you so much because you understand.
Yeah, and it worked for me. Right. It worked. And I've seen it work for so many people. Like
but
Lisa,
even on an emotional level too, like you get it. So
I mean, it's so hard being bigger.
Yeah.
You literally feel like you are nothing.
Right.
The way that people treat me now, like even just having my boobs done, the way people look at me, nobody looked at me before. People look at me now. It's a sad world. People treat me so different. The amount of offers like I've gotten through like social media and just job offers and the way that men speak to me, the way people speak to me, it's insane. It's just crazy. And I'm like, insurance will not cover these medications for these people.
Right.
They just won't unless you're a diabetic. Why wait till your A1C is 7.1? What if I could have lost the weight before I ever even became diabetic? Yeah. Wouldn't that make more sense? So now that the FDA has approved them for weight loss, all of these insurance companies are dropping weight loss coverage from their formularies. So they're making it impossible. So the only thing that people can use are these compound pharmacies like Amble has. But a lot of them aren't using safe ones. They're not regulated. They're not legit script certified. There's so many things that goes into it. And they charge $700 a month. Our semaglutide Ozempic is $199. If you were to go get Ozempic at CVS, it's $1,600.
It's insane.
So to have something that I can be like, I can help you, and you don't have to pay $1,600 because I'm not about to tell someone to go spend their entire check on something when you shouldn't have to.
Right.
You shouldn't have to pay that much to be happy. Because if losing weight is what it takes to be happy and healthy and love yourself, then it's all worth it. Like if that's what you need to do to be happy, because it's what I needed to do. I was so unhealthy. My liver enzymes were in the 400s. My gallbladder went out because I was so unhealthy.
And the thing is too is you know, like I said, you understand it on an emotional level, but also you understand how it feels to struggle with losing weight. I think a lot of people have the misconception that like, oh, well, you're not trying hard enough. Like work out and eat healthy. But it's like when you struggle, like, especially too, if you have other things wrong, like what you had PCOS, you said that like kind of contributed.
And chronic inflammation. Yeah.
So it's just like, it's not as easy sometimes. It's just eat healthy and work out. And you were working out.
I know. So and that's the crazy part. It just felt like nothing was working. And it felt like Mounjaro, like what the medication has in it, fixed everything that was wrong inside me internally that was preventing me from losing weight. And I feel like they call me a rapid responder because most people, they'll lose like 1 pound a week. Okay. I was losing like 3-5 pounds a week because my doctor said it's because it fixed everything that was wrong with you. Yeah. You were lacking the GLP hormone. You were lacking the GIP hormone. Mm-hmm. So when you got it in your body, it changed completely. Now, do they have to
monitor you?
Yeah. So you check in with the doctor. Okay. So a lot of these companies have like membership fees, like $100 a month. Okay. We have like no membership fees. You can talk to your doctor like 24/7. Okay. Whenever you want. You do monthly check-ins to say like, I'm having this side effect or that side effect. Mm-hmm. I want to go up in dose, down in dose, stay at this dose. So they're really good about checking in and stuff like that. Yeah. Because it does have to be prescribed.
And then do you stay on it for life? Or?
I'm planning on it, yeah. Okay. I still do 1 shot a week and I just eat enough not to lose or gain. I went off of it for a month before my tummy tuck because it affects anesthesia. Got it. So I gained 7 pounds of just water weight.
Jeez, yeah.
My PCOS and inflammation just came right back.
Now, does it make you, because I've heard with those, I only really heard about Ozempic, but I heard that. So does it kind of just take the craving away from food or does it make you feel like nauseous?
So semaglutide, I can actually like explain it pretty well. So semaglutide has a GLP. It's a single agonist. So the GLP, it slows gastric emptying to keep you fuller for longer. Got it. So it makes the food sit in your stomach longer. So when you're eating, it signals your brain to stop eating. So before you can eat 5 plates. Got it. Now tirzepatide, which is the active ingredient in Mounjaro, the newer one, it has double the weight loss as Ozempic with less side effects. Mm-hmm. So it has the GLP that slows down the gastric emptying, but it has a GIP hormone that basically breaks the connection between food and addiction. It also helps my addiction. I went from 16 milligrams of Subutex a day to 2 milligrams. Okay. Because it does something to the addiction center in the brain. It's helped people quit smoking. It's helped people quit drinking. It's helped people with cholesterol, high blood pressure. My friend who I brought here, she's off all her blood pressure and cholesterol medications now. She's lost 80 pounds, 66 pounds. Wow. They're studying it for fatty liver disease, heart disease, and cancer right now. So tirzepatide, the one that I took, Mounjaro, the better one, also that GIP that breaks that connection between addiction and food, it also reduces inflammation throughout your entire body. So my chronic inflammation from my PCOS was completely taken away. So I feel so much better on it. I have not thrown up once, gotten nauseous once, gotten sick once. I have not had a single bad side effect. Okay. I feel like a lot of the media just projects like, you're going to get sick and die if you take this.
So there's no long-term risks or anything that they know of?
So people act like these just came out. They've been around since 2009. So they have over a decade of people who've been on them. And if you're not having bad side effects, there's no reason to go off of it. Because I have more bad side effects when I go off of it than when I don't.
Right. And if it helps you, that is all that matters.
Exactly. Yeah. And
I think that's amazing. And I think it's even more amazing that you're able to now work for that company. You work for that company,
people,
right? Yeah. And help people. And while you're helping people, you're helping yourself. The whole thing it's amazing.
It's literally incredible. Like I never thought I'd get to do something that I love and that I truly believe in. And people come back to me months later and they're like, I lost 20 pounds because I saw you on a TikTok live and I signed up and you made me feel so safe and you reassured me and you explained all the federal regulations on how it's safe and safely made. And I had this one woman email me. She was in her 60s. She was like, I have been overweight since I was 10. And because of you, I weigh less now than I did when I was 10 years old. She lost like 200 pounds or something. And like, that's all I want is like, after everything I've been through and after all the pain and all the heartache I've seen and if I can make people happy and inspire people and help people get to their goals and do whatever they need to do to be happy, then I'm happy. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm finally, something good is coming out of all this trauma and out of all of this pain. And that's all I think I ever wanted. Like these last 3 months, like I just went to Cozumel, Cayman Islands. I've just been traveling
living your life
with my best friend, Gabby, too, and going on vacation and like wearing a bikini for the first time ever. Like that's like the best feeling. I know it's something so small, but like,
it's not small to you. You
exactly.
know, it's a huge milestone, and it's something that makes you feel confident. And confidence is like, it's such a good feeling when you have it.
I know. I'm wearing these dresses. We did a photo shoot yesterday with her photographer, and I was like looking at the photos like, I can't believe that's me.
Right. And it's like, I feel like everybody knows how shitty it feels when you don't feel confident. And when you look in the mirror and you're like, ew, I don't look good today. It's like, it's annoying. It's frustrating. So to feel good, it like makes everything better.
It does. It truly does. Like it's life changing. And I have one more surgery left and I'm done, and I cannot freaking wait. So I have a lot of fat on my lower back. Okay. I don't know why. All my fat just collects on my lower back. So we thought the tummy tuck would kind of pull it tight, but it didn't.
Okay.
So we're going to suck all the fat out of my lower back.
And you're going to do lipo?
Yeah. Okay. Lipo throughout all of my back area and lower flank. I have really big hips. So they're going to get rid of some of that excess fat, and they're going to put a little bit in my butt.
Good for you. A little BBL action.
Little mini BBL. I was like, I don't want anything crazy. Right. I said I just wanted everything to look proportionate. Yeah. So I just want it to be proportionate.
I love that. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's been a lot. My plastic surgeon's Dr. Angelina, she's on TikTok too. Mm-hmm. She is incredible. Her and I are really close, and thank God she's made this affordable for me. So, I've done some promotions for her, and she's helped me out with like some cost on things. Good. And because it's not cheap. I've invested over $20,000 in my body already.
It's no joke. Yeah. But I think it's so important and amazing that you're open about it, because I think that, I don't know, as you know, I'm sure with social media, it's like some people aren't honest, and then some people shame people for, getting work done. And I can't express it enough. And like you said, whatever makes you feel happy and confident, if you have access to it, why not do it? If you can afford it, why not do it?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And, the whole point of like coming on here too is like, I am so happy for the first time in my life. It took me 25 years to truly be happy. And I just want people to know, like, no matter how dark and how awful things are, because half the stuff that happened to me wasn't even a fault of my own. Yeah. It was a fault of somebody else. And then I had to deal with the aftermath. And yes, me choosing drugs was not a good decision. Mm-hmm. I messed up when I decided to go that route. And even though I messed up that bad and I lost everything and had to start over multiple times, like, I am so happy now. Like, it doesn't have to be the end of everything. Just because you've lived, let's say, 24 years in hell doesn't mean that the rest of your life is going to be hell. Yeah. Like, you can change it. It can turn around and things can get better. I'm at a place with my mom where it's still hard. And, she's done a couple things that have disappointed me lately, kind of like reverting back to just the lies. And it's unfortunate. And I'm really trying to like rise above it. My sister really wants me to like, I don't know what she wants. I think she just wants me to talk to her more. But like, every time I go see her, when I come back, my night terrors come back. My PTSD comes back. It's like every time I see her, something bad happens.
And the thing is too, is you might not be there yet. You might not be ready yet. And you have to listen to yourself and do things in your own time. And I think too that unfortunately, and this isn't to speak on your mom's character, even though I've heard a lot, but that just might be who she is. And then it's your decision. Just accepting it. Right. It's your decision. Like, okay, can I set enough boundaries for myself where I can have her in my life and not let it affect me anymore? Right. Or do I need to take a step back for a little while?
Right, exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with whatever you choose. It just is, it matters how it makes you feel.
Right, exactly.
And if right now, every time you see her, it's bringing you back to a place of darkness and negativity.
Very darkness,
You don't need that. You're in a really good place for yourself.
And that's exactly what I tried to explain to my sister. I was like, I am so happy until I go see her.
Don't let anybody take that away. Even a family member. Fuck that. You don't need that.
Right. And I mean, things are going so well. Like I'm financially, I never thought I'd be in this kind of place.
Right.
Like I never thought I'd have a house. I've always lived in apartments or squalor or really nice mansions with nannies. It's been kind of all over the place.
You've had a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. And I never thought like, oh my God, when I got a rehab, I never thought I'd have like a house with my sister. And my sister lives with me now. So she moved in with me. It's just her and I.
Yeah.
And I finally have everything like I want in my life. My sister, my dog, my friends, and I get to travel. And my dad's divorcing Kate.
Good.
He filed for divorce last month.
Oh my God.
So,
and your relationship with him is better?
Oh yeah. Okay, me and my dad are really close. We go on vacation. He's divorced her because we went on vacation last month. We get to see my dad twice a year and she got jealous.
Okay. So, I mean, she has some issues.
Very.
Yeah.
Much so. So he's divorcing her. He filed for divorce a month ago. So it's stay to Texas 1 more month. It's only 60 days in Texas.
Okay.
So my dad's single, retired now, building his dream home.
Amazing.
And we're going to Phuket, Thailand for a month in November together.
That's so nice.
So me and my dad are going to go to Thailand together in November for a month.
And I feel like that'll be great too, because it's like you're going back and you're in a totally different place.
Such a different place.
Yeah. That is amazing and so incredible. And like literally, like I just said, I feel like you've lived so many different lifetimes.
It's been crazy.
Like a little bit of everything. And I think it's so incredible that you really never let any of it change you. Yeah. Like I feel like, and you might not feel that way because I'm sure at some point you're like, who am I? And like, especially with the drugs and stuff like that. But I feel like you really have stayed true to yourself. Yeah. And like you're finally at a point where you're like, okay, now I'm figuring out like who I want to be, where I am, like what I want to do with my life, and what
now
makes
that I don't
me
hate
happy.
myself, I can.
Exactly.
It feels like, and it's just turned me into a brutally honest person who values loyalty and honesty above everything else because that's the one thing that destroyed me in the past was people not doing that.
You see the importance of it.
So for me, like now, like call me a bitch sometimes, and I'm just gonna say it how it is. That's why my best friend Gabby. Love her because she will never lie to me. If I come out in a dress and I'm like, does this look bad? I know she's not going to lie to me.
Right.
Little things like that I shouldn't have to worry about, but I do because I've been lied to my whole life. And I'm just grateful that I have people in my life now who I can trust and rely on and actually believe in because I never had that before. So I feel really, really lucky.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you did amazing. Seriously.
Thank you.
And your story, like I said, when I took a break earlier, you are such a good storyteller. I'm not even kidding you. It was like watching a movie in my own head. I'm like playing everything out. I have all the characters lined up and it was like on the edge of my seat. What's happening? You did amazing.
Good.
Seriously. And I know that everybody listening loved it for sure.
Oh,
and
good.
It's probably going to resonate with so many people as well.
I hope
many, there's so many different parts of your story.
There is, for sure.
But you did incredible. And thank you so much for wanting to tell your story on my show. It means so much to me. You did such a good job.
Thank you. Good. I hope it went well.